Hello? I believe there are angels among us. Sit down to us. Somewhere above they come to and you in
Hey, bitches. Sorry, how's everybody doing today? It is Friday. It is officially Christmas break at my house. But anyhow, how's everybody doing? Daisy dead. Oh, Morbid's intros are way better than mine. I just throw something together before I go live. Okay. I need someone to make me an intro or an outro. I'm so sick of that outro. I've had it for years. The one, obviously an outro is the one at the very end of the stream. Let's see. Hey, Bethany, Casey May, Hakab, Aaron, Ruth Carroll, Richard Allen, 130 years. Yes, ma'am. Justice served, absolutely. If you do not follow Hidden True Crime and you want to know more about Delphi, I highly suggest Hidden True Crime or Gray Hughes. But Hidden True Crime is like boots on the ground over there, and she's gonna tell us about the victim impact statements that were made today. So I can't wait to hear those. I'm sure they're heartbreaking though. Hello, Renee Davis, Main Chick, Kimberly. Casey May, I already said hi to you, but hello again. Gypsia's new mama in the house. I heard about Pink Pony. That's so fucked up. Who took her? Well, there's no telling who, but I'm sure we all know. Phaedra. I hope I said that right. Lydia Jade. Murder on the dance floor. Hey, Nicole. Hello, Kelly Davis. Silnat. Daisy Dead. Jade Thomas. The intro's fire too. I hate my outro though. I really do want someone to make a new one. Yes, it's Friday. I hope everybody's topless, Sarah, Mozzie, AJ, Nova Bella. All right, I can't scroll up too far or I will lose everything. Spooky. They feel threatened, obviously. I guess she didn't get her account back. Does that mean she lost everything that she had? Because I truly hope not. Delilah Dove, Slim. Everybody's topless, I see. That's nice. I like it. Gypsy likes it. And I hope, well, I don't hope, but, Jip likes the clear nips. Likes the clear nipples. Not the brown ones. That's what she said. All right, so I've got the audiobook where I do believe we can play it. I don't know what the copyright rules are for doing that, but you know what? We're gonna try to skate by that. Okay. Let's see. Get myself set up over here with my water and my stuff. All right. I don't want to read the whole entire thing though, because I've already listened to this shit before. So, we'll see. Even though Pink Pony and a couple of others were there, it had a big impact. Exactly, it did. Yes, absolutely. Gypsy and her people were the ones that made it a bigger deal, and I'm glad it ruined it for Gypsy, despite how she pretends not. Yeah, exactly. No, it was definitely a success. I mean, it's we're starting a movement. We're gonna start, the Justice for Dee Dee movement, and her sisters are very supportive, apparently, because you know they contacted Pink Pony or came in our comment sections to show their gratitude. That was awesome. We've got other people. I still need to email Nelly Belly. I would like to have Nelly Belly up here one day and just kind of do a little like interview type deal with her. There's also a couple of people from the Bayou over on Tiki Talk. We still have another go around. Oh, yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Casey. Y'all had to, well, I bet I have it somewhere. Yeah, so Casey, and I know What the Bug, and probably Wild Bird, if I had to guess. Oh, I can't remember everybody off the top of my head, but they are, beginning to gather what or so, what's the word I'm looking for? They're beginning to, organize something for, when was it? July 2025 for Dee Dee in New Orleans. So mark your calendars for that. 7/27. Okay. Don't forget about that. Everybody mark it down. I'm sure we will be reminding you, though. How pathetic. Boycott Lifetime. What did Lifetime do now? What happened? Does Carms? Carms is here. Chicken crafts. Yeah, bro. We are Dee Dee's voice, bro. Oh, I see what you're doing there. Lord have mercy. I legit couldn't figure out for a hot second why that Jake looked familiar. All right, let's see. It will be, here we go. It will be July the 27th in Jackson Square in New Orleans. I can't speak. In New Orleans, Louisiana. NOLA. I think New Orleans is about 5 hours from where I live. Haiti Joyless, you made it. I don't know if you've ever been in over here, have you? All right, guys, y'all want to listen to this damn book? I'm not listening to the whole thing. Oh, we love you, Carms. You're one of my faves. Hey, girl, hi. Maybe I can even come to that. Oh, possibly. Mark your calendars. Mark your calendars. All right, let's pull this bullshit up here. Okay, where do we want to start?
Three. Sha. Term of endearment, love, or dear. My father was not present at my birth. As I wrestled my way out of my mama, he was getting wasted and tripping on acid.
All right, we're going to speed it up a little bit here. Put on 1.25. Y'all want to start here? When her dad wasn't at her birth and was out tripping on acid? It's her actual voice. That's why I wanted to play it instead of read it so you can hear her, saying the things that she says, okay? Oh, Carms. Okay, let's see. Joy says, I have herb. Well, if you're going to NOLA, don't bring your pew pew and a gun. I mean, a pew pew and a gun. A gun and a marijuana. Never mind. Never mind. It's just an Ivory Rose joke. I'm sorry, girl. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. If Dee Dee knew Claude was a diddler, why would she let Gypsy be along with? Yeah, no, it makes no sense. Everyone in the Bayou or down in Golden Meadow, which is where Dee Dee's from, have said that is not true. Claude was never that type of a man, and it's a small area. Like people would have heard of these things. I'm just saying. I don't know why Gypsy would make something like that up either. It's gross. All right, let's see. All right, we're gonna, I guess, start here, guys. So buckle in. I'll pause, try to use fair use, give some commentary. What didn't happen in NOLA? Lexi. If someone diddled you, why would you leave? Oh, where did that comment go? Why would you leave your kid with her? Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make the math ain't mathin'. Yeah, it's strange. Doesn't really make much sense because it's probably not true. All right, who's that? I cannot see. Who's that? Star Wars Joy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, we're gonna start this book. So buckle your little buttons in. We're just gonna start here, and I may skip some places because you never know.
As I wrestled my way out of my mama, he was getting wasted and tripping on acid with his friends for 4 days at the Torpin Rodeo, a fishing tournament over on Grand Isle. Minutes old and swaddled sweetly, I imagined my days enchanting my mother with a love and a fixed attention she had never known. And that's when she decided I was not to be shared. When they cut the cord that connected us, defensively, she held me tighter.
How do you know, Gypsy? How you were an infant? You can't tell me you remember that. Like, what are you talking about? How do you know that's when your mom decided anything? Huh? I don't get it. You just make this shit up. You just pull it straight out of your ass. This is pure fiction. It's a book you wrote for fun.
It was just me and Mama against the world, she'd say, from the get-go. Even when my dad decided very soon after my birth that he would give it another go with Dee Dee and try to make it work, and moved us all into a rented house not far from Claude and Emma. I appreciate the fact that my dad, still so young and carefree.
Can I just say that I think it's strange that, like, she'll go from calling her mom by her name, like calling her Dee Dee, and then she'll call her Mama. Like, that's strange to me. Why are you calling your mom Dee Dee? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I appreciate the fact that my dad, still so young and carefree, would love me enough to attempt to give me a family he thought I deserved. But he and Mama still couldn't be intimate together. With my dad unable to talk himself into feeling a romantic love for Mama he never had. So he left her a second time, this time for good. My dad gave us financial support, but let's face it, he was still a kid, and whatever he strung together didn't help my mother afford the rented house. So she asked her parents if she and I could move in and stay with them for a while until my mother could get on her own feet. She had quit the hospital where she'd worked as a nurse's aide. We told you should have never got pregnant, and you should have never married Rod in the first place, Mumsy Emma said, adding a click of the tongue for good measure. But fine, you can stay here. That's when Mama and I moved back to the Blue House, where we would live until...
How does she... I'm so confused how you know what Mumsy Emma said about Dee Dee moving back in. I was scripted talking about her parents' sex life. She talks about it more than one time. Bad girl. I don't know. Fucking, she sexualizes every aspect of every part of her story. So, she's got to add in there, like you actually know how many times they had sex. It's fucking strange. Bizarre.
That's when Mama and I moved back to the Blue House, where we would live until I was about 5 years old. After my arrest, my story swept the world as an egregious example of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a psychological condition in which a parent or caregiver claims their dependent, typically a child, has a non-existent illness. But I see now that my upbringing encompassed way more dysfunction than that. My mother's possessiveness tortured me as equally as the faked illnesses and unneeded surgeries. I'm still peeling back the layers that reveal elements of control and complete domination. which she established using several techniques over multiple domains of my life, not just my healthcare. I don't want to
What?
believe she was conscious of her ways. It's so hard to believe that. At the same time, I am haunted by the possibility that perhaps she did have awareness of the depth of the emotional pain she was causing and simply lacked empathy for me. If she knew my pain, empathized with how it might feel to be locked away, prodded, and lied to, she wouldn't have done it in the first place, right? And if she couldn't put herself in my shoes and feel what I felt, does that mean she also didn't feel bad about it? To possess someone, you must see them not as a person, but as an object, like property. The literal meaning of possession is to physically take over the property. From that first gaze in the hospital, it was me and Mama against the world.
Yeah,
No
you
bad
already
men,
said
no
that.
intruders. My birth certificate was her deed to a property rightfully hers.
Oh my
The
God.
takeover had begun. Before it was a physical takeover in the form of controlling my body's functions, it was an emotional one. I grew up dreamy-eyed for Mama. When you're little, your world is so small. I had my mother, my bedroom, and my dolls. I was a sucker for dolls. My early memories are of my mother promising a new doll to me if I would just see a new doctor, have a new procedure,
Oh,
not an
bullshit.
agreement,
Bullshit.
not ask why, hold my tongue. Many say Mama was manipulative, holding the dolls over me like that. But getting the doll
Oh
was
my
my
God.
endgame. So wasn't I a willing participant? I was too young at the time for me to blame myself now. But I do wonder if I helped my mother do the things she did. To me, to the system, and to my dad. Dolls were commerce, clauses in a long-term agreement between my mom and me. But they were also a symbol of innocence and purity.
Jeez, hold on a second. I don't know. You were you were abused by dolls. How dare your mother offer up some dolls because you were a sick kid, Gypsy. Sounds awful. I'm just joking. I don't know. Hello, Laura Lynn. Hello, everybody that's coming in. I believe the doll thing, she has a stuffed animal or doll in every single picture. Yeah, I do believe that. But I don't believe she was having all these awful things done to her to get the dolls. She probably got whatever she fucking wanted. She was so abused. What Rod did or didn't do is on Rod. Yeah. She'll start reenacting some parts. All right, let's just keep going.
Dolls were commerce, clauses in a long-term agreement between my mom and me. But they were also a symbol of innocence and purity. Mama preferred that I not play with Barbie dolls. She didn't want me to see the anatomy, no matter how poorly scaled, of a woman. If I were to undress a doll to change its clothes, I was to see a baby's body, without bulges or bumps. Clean, she'd call it. The accessories for a baby dolls were, many say Mama was manipulative. Mama preferred that I not play with Barbie dolls.
I'm on mute. That's a lie. That's a lie. We all know you had Barbie dolls, okay? You were on that Emma Rose account in the same group where you were posting the Anastasia Steele pictures. You know which ones I'm talking about? Her cosplaying like 50 Shades of Grey. In that same Facebook group, she had Barbie dolls and she had dressed them up like the people from the couple, whatever you want to call them, from 50 Shades of Grey. And we've also seen her have Barbies at birthday parties and other things too, Gypsy. So how does that work? I don't get it. Your mama had probably had to take them Barbie dolls away because she caught you in there making them, scissor each other. That's what I imagine, you dirty ass.
She didn't want me to see the anatomy, no matter how poorly scaled, of a woman.
Oh my God.
If I were to undress a doll to change its clothes, I was to see 9.
Okay. Am I
Alone.
here? Am I still here? Okay.
Let's go.
My internet's being weird.
Maybe Mama really had magic powers. Because in the months leading up to my second escape attempt in 2012, I knew by the way she increased her surveillance of
Am I
me
here?
that she sensed I was up to something.
Muted.
I couldn't even go to the bathroom without asking.
Okay, y'all can hear me now.
I couldn't even go to the bathroom without asking permission. It took months to regain Mama's trust after she unleashed me from the bedpost. If I had been allowed to walk, it would have been on eggshells, as I did everything in my power not to upset her. I took my medicine and wore my oxygen at night, the ruse now an open flesh wound, but still ongoing. It was our normal, and I needed it back, so at least she'd take the bell off the back door. What kept me going was the hope of an escape, and that hope was crammed in a backpack hidden behind the couch. That and the painkillers. I don't know if it was my nervous energy, but she was tipped off and went on one of her maniacal searches of the house.
What?
She ransacked my bedroom, not exactly knowing what she was looking for, but likely thinking she'd know it when she saw it. I followed her in my wheelchair, crying, "What are you doing? What are you looking for? What did I do?" After she dumped out all of my drawers, she continued to the living room. I slickly maneuvered my wheelchair to block the couch cushion. I was a human compass arrow that led the pirate right to its booty.
What?
"Move out of the way," my mother said, her eyes darting. I knew I couldn't deny the evidence. "Can't you just let me leave? Let me go," I
What?
pleaded, looking past her to the kitchen table where her favorite talisman, an old-fashioned Chinese dagger, lay.
Okay, I was like, what the hell? I think something happened. I was like, how did we get to Barbie dolls to this? Are we on the right? Is it just me or did she like totally time skip there? Which one was I on? Was on this one.
3. Around the house, as I watched The Lion King for the 100th time, now as I write this, I wonder if that kind of brainwashing about my sexuality. To possess someone, you must see them not as a person, but as an object, like property. The literal meaning of possession is to physically take over the property. From that first gaze in the hospital, I was a sucker for dolls. I was too young at the time for me. If I were to undress a doll to change its clothes, I was to see a baby's body, without bulges or bumps. Clean,
Hey,
she'd call
Anarchy
it.
Faye.
The accessories for a baby doll were a baby bottle and a stroller, not a provocative hot tub or dream house. The baby doll's companion was its mommy, not a Ken doll, which would have prompted more questions my mother didn't want to address. I wonder, if I'd had the opportunity for Ken to play with Barbie, would my mother have known about Daddy Claude sooner? At first, the shame she inflicted was subliminal, like implying that our natural naked state is dirty by preferring clean. But soon enough, Mama became more literal in what she expected from my body. Breasts were sinful and were to be covered. Pubic hair was dirty and should be shaved off. Now, as I write this, I wonder if that kind of brainwashing about my sexuality was really a means to get me to be complicit in hiding my puberty from the outside world, to
Oh
keep
my
me young and
God.
consistent with her documentation. Regardless, for much of my life, I felt confused and conflicted about my womanhood. As I do the work of remembering the timeline of my life with her, imagining our first moments together in the maternity ward, being dressed as her mini-me, being drafted into a united front against a family she, for whatever reason, felt ostracized from. I don't feel hatred toward my mother.
Yeah, you do.
I've come to see that my mother wanted me to keep my world small as a child's, possibly because as hers became bigger and bigger, she got scared away. In my memories from between 5 and 9 years old, our relationship felt like an innocent love, surrounded by toys resembling the small world, not the real world. Fisher Price little people with
They're
their
all
barrel
gonna laugh
bodies
at you.
and little cars in my little
They're all gonna laugh at you, Gypsy. I gotta pause it here and there. Lord have mercy. They're all gonna laugh at you.
In my memories from between 5 and 9 years old, our relationship felt like an innocent love, surrounded by toys resembling the small world, not the real world. Fisher Price little people with their barreled bodies in little cars in my little living room in a little Section 8 apartment in the Golden Meadow Projects, where we moved after we left the Blue House, after Mumsy Emma died and Daddy Claude decided to marry Laura, a local nurse who had worked with Mama and who Daddy Claude had a long-standing relationship with. In the confines of our home, I never called my mom Mama, at least not very often, and she rarely called me Gypsy. Names have history. They're bigger than nicknames. Nicknames reduce a person to one small trait, safe and definable. Around the house, as I watched The Lion King for the 100th time or pretended to feed kibble to my stuffed Raja tiger from Aladdin, my mother called me Baby, and I called her Honey. Honey and Baby were safe and had no past. My mother's love was in the present, and not small at all. She was my honey, and I was her baby. Our terms of endearment could be easily swapped with those of a newlywed couple, intoxicated by each other's pheromones. Honey, I'd call out to her, with my arm outstretched and bottle in hand. More, honey, more. I see now I was her emotional support surrogate very early on, our dynamic resembling a couple instead of a mother-daughter duo.
How
I'm
is
all
that
for the
like a
idea of us
couple?
against the world.
I don't get this couple thing. Maybe that was just you. Is that why you were kissing your mama in front of the castle like that? I don't know. That's really strange to compare your relationship with your mom at even a young age to a relationship. It's odd. Yeah, intoxicated by each other's pheromones. I think that I don't know, Gypsy, you're weird. It's probably you. Hey Andy, my boo boo. She is twisted. I'm telling you, this book really showed me how twisted and dark and disgusting Gypsy is. And she's delusional as well. Very delusional person living in a delusional world. Oh, it's okay, Sammy. Glad you're here, Sammy Soup. Jessie G. Ann. Yeah, she's gross. Just wait. This is nothing.
I'm all for the idea of us against the world. If you are a fierce single mom raising strong daughters, modeling what can be accomplished when you stick together. But our us against the world looked more like her sticking to me. While I was very young, that stickiness was sweet like molasses. No one's ever going to take as good care of you as me, baby, she'd say. Molasses, if it's stored right, could last for years before it begins to mold over. And for years, we were each other's companions. We bathed together, slept in the same bed together, watched the same daytime television programs. Her interest in sci-fi and fantasy and the People's Court became my interest. When I showed my own curiosity for things separate from her, like Barbie dolls, she'd be there to deflect. Now, you don't want those dolls when you have so many stuffed animals to play with. I don't want Barbie. There's power in numbers, and in my mother's paranoid defensive mind, it had always been Claude and his other 5 children against Stevie, especially after Mumsy Emma passed. She and her brothers and sisters were like the neighboring towns of Lafourche Parish, stacked one right after the next, separated by invisible boundary lines that kept them out of each other's borders.
The condom story is so disgusting. I can't even tell y'all what it is. You're going to have to hear it for yourself if we get there. Yeah, if you guys don't mind, go hit that freaking like button. It takes just a couple of seconds and it helps, push things out into the algorithm. We will see what happens to the stream after it's over because I do not know the copyright rules when it comes to audiobooks. So I guess I'll find out. So if this is not here later, I apologize. And If I have to take it down, it's due to copyright. So I'm just letting you guys know. I thought I'd give you a chance to hear it for yourself, okay? I'm taking another one for the team. So hit that fucking like button.
She and her brothers and sisters were like the neighboring towns of Lafourche Parish, stacked one right after the next, separated by invisible boundary lines that kept them out of each other's borders. One of Mama's brothers brought his invisible limit line out in clear view when he kicked us out of our own home. After Momsey Emma died, Claude moved out of the blue house and bought a new home with his second wife, Laura, leaving just me and Mama living in the blue house. But Mama told me that my uncle claimed Momsey Emma had verbally promised him that he'd get the house after she died, and he wanted what was rightfully promised.
Sorry, I was muted. I thought you can read from a book. You can, but I don't know what the audio book, if there's copyright on like an audio book, you know what I'm saying? As long as yeah, I know, but the thing is with the commentary, you have to pause it like every couple of seconds. I don't remember how many second, a minute, and I just can't do that, or we will never get through it if I pause that much. So I'll try to do commentary, here and there.
And he wanted what was rightfully promised to him. So one day, after Mama and I came home from one of my doctor's appointments, we found all of our stuff out on the front porch and lawn. I remember seeing my Uncle Pookie and Mama yelling at each other on the porch. My mama told me that my uncle and his wife and kids had moved in and kicked Mama and me out. We're officially homeless, she said. Even though I was about 5 years old, I still remember feeling unsafe when I saw my favorite toys and dolls and nightgowns strewn out on the lawn like that. I wasn't yet in the wheelchair, but Mama already had doctors treating me for asthma, sleep apnea, hearing and vision impairments, and epilepsy, which she claimed were caused by a chromosomal deficiency, and she had taken me out of kindergarten to be homeschooled. In a later conversation with Uncle Pookie, he explained to me that the argument he and Mama had on the porch was sparked by him questioning my mother about my mysterious bad health, telling her, "She needs to be in school, Dee Dee. Why is she not being schooled?" Never one to be told what to do, my mother did what she did best, ran away from those who had my best interest at heart, just because she couldn't handle being told she was wrong. Nobody told Mama she was wrong, not even the doctors. I anticipate I will continue to uncover thousands of lies that pixelate the reality my mother designed for me, as if I'd been living in a simulation all those years. For a short period of time after we were kicked out, Mama and I stayed at her godmother's house, but we soon got kicked out of there too, since I later learned Mama was caught stealing checks out of her godmother's checkbook. I don't know if she was that desperate for money or if she was just wanting to steal. But
Oh
right
my
after
God.
that, we bounced to New Orleans for a while, where we lived rent-free for weeks in the Ronald McDonald House. You're not supposed to stay so long. Once we were approved, we finally moved to the Golden Meadow Projects, where I lived until I was 9.
Hey, Dank.
Mama knew how to get approved for a lot of things and lived off the system. So I'm not sure if remanding me to a wheelchair was part of the scheme or if it was a symptom of her Munchausen by proxy. Mama scored 3 different government-issued phones because she applied for different benefits for different reasons. We lived in Section 8 housing. We were both on Medicaid. I was confined to a wheelchair after I was in a motorcycle accident when I was 8 years old. Daddy Claude had a Harley, and I went riding one day on the back. Reacting to a car that had cut us off, Daddy Claude swerved out of the way and sideswiped us off the road. I was bleeding when we returned to Mama. After she found out what happened, she rushed me to the hospital, where I was cleared of anything other than a road rash. I went home with an ace bandage, and she nursed me as if I had had an amputation. She bought me a walker, sent me for physical therapy, and after a few months came home with a wheelchair, which I was relegated to permanently. I learned recently that Mama's family members got on Mama for putting me in the wheelchair, but that only made her run away with me. At first, she told people I lost use of my legs from the accident. But as we moved around, her stories became more elaborate. She told some people my imaginary seizures damaged the motor function part of my brain. She was real strict when it came to me being still, which is why I was never allowed out of the wheelchair even in the privacy of our home. I had to maintain the habit. By the time I was in my teens, she harped on me. "Gypsy, I see you moving your legs." She'd say with a rap to my knee, "Stop moving them." Mama's health was not the best, as she often reminded me, especially when she wanted to get me to behave or do something I didn't want to do. "You know I'm not feeling well, baby. Why you sassing me?" She said she was bipolar and had schizophrenia, but it's unclear whether those were legitimately diagnosed. I did bear witness to her frightening highs and lows. Her type 2 diabetes, which was medically documented, required her to take insulin. It wasn't odd for a woman of her size who lived on Pepsi and milk and who thought having to drink water was a punishment to have diabetes. She was on pain meds because the fusion she had in her leg after a car accident never fully took, causing her chronic debilitating pain, all paid for by disability and Social Security. With me playing the role of the sick child who required government checks and help from charities and
Oh,
her
hold
own
on.
compromised health.
Someone said, hang on. Sorry. I also have to walk away every now and then so I don't hear everything. I've already listened to the book, so it's like grating my ears to re-listen. But again, over here taking one for the team, y'all. Pepsi and milk. Yeah, she lived off Pepsi and milk. Oh, hold on. I've got a phone call, so I'm going to push play.
With me playing the role of the sick child who required
Hello?
government checks and help from charities and her own
Hello?
compromised health, Mama held me as her shield, her
She
weapon
couldn't
against
find her
ever
phone.
needing
She's
her
coming
family's
out.
assistance again.
Oh,
And
sorry.
she sent Daddy Claude a crystal clear message to that effect. My mother and I attended his wedding ceremony to Laura, dressed all in black. 4. Tea Beck Do. Give me a sweet little kiss. My mother always warned me to stay away from men. Now I knew why. He was touchy-feely, and I thought that's what grandpas were supposed to be. Affectionate, close,
Hold
like a
on,
daddy,
sorry.
except
My
smelling a
bad.
little staler.
Ew.
As I've mentioned, for about 5...
Sorry about that. My kid called. Never mind. Anyhow. What did she say? Milk and Pepsi. Yeah, she lived off milk and Pepsi. They showed the inside of their refrigerator on the NPG Cornerstone thing, and there was milk and Pepsi in there. 2 jugs of milk, I think, and a whole shit ton of Pepsi that you were drinking too, probably in that Baba. All right, here we go. Laverne and Shirley.
As I've mentioned, for about 5 years of my childhood that I remember, I lived with the Petrie side of the family. My mother moving back into the blue house in Golden Meadow, where she'd grown up with Daddy Claude and Momsy Emma. Following the incident with my uncle, we'd moved to the projects, and then, after a car accident, in with Daddy Claude and his new wife Laura. It is no secret, nor is it an exaggeration, to say that my mother and Laura hated each other, and for reasons I'm not sure of. Family members have said that my mother freaked out because Claude remarried so quickly after Momsy Emma passed at age 59, and therefore my mother had it out for Laura by default. But Laura had an equally passionate disdain for my mother, allegedly acting out against her at the hospital where...
Yeah, I don't know why she calls him Daddy Claude. I think it's gross. Like, if that's the person that you claim did stuff to you, why are you still calling them Daddy Claude? I don't know. Find it odd. And I find it odd that she wanted to read this in her own voice. It's like, she wanted to say the words herself. Ugh, it's gross. Yeah, trigger warning. I don't know when the pecan thing comes up. I may try to skip it if it does because it's so gross. She's so delusional. It's her kink. That's what I think, Phaedra.
But Laura had an equally passionate disdain for my mother, allegedly acting out against her at the hospital where they worked together. According to what Mama told me, Laura once opened Mama's work locker and stole Mama's wedding picture, ripped it in half, and tore up just Mama's face and body into a million little pieces, and then put them all back inside the locker for Mama to find. Mama thought Laura and her whole relationship with Daddy Claude was inappropriate. I agree with my mother that Daddy Claude was inappropriate, but not because he replaced his wife. Many of my family members, including Claude himself, deny that there had been any sexual abuse at Claude's hands. In a TV documentary, he offered an implausible counter-narrative. She was the one trying to touch me, and I'd say, no, don't do that. She started doing that when she was about 4 years old. My mother's credibility is obviously in question, and her being an unreliable narrator helps support the reasonable doubt that outsiders have. But I know what I saw.
Hold on. Gypsy, you are an unreliable narrator as well. I'm just saying. That is something you did get from your mama, is your ability to tell these elaborate stories, fictional stories. It's when she starts talking about them. Oh, gosh. Yeah, the pecan thing we may have to skip through. It's very graphic. In my opinion, it's graphic. I don't know. It's yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. Ugh. Edited bias documentary as fact. Yeah, I know. She can't keep track of the lies without her mom. That's very true, Angel. That's very true. Gypsy is not a good liar. She's really not. It's hard to determine about anything SA. I mean, it was weird. He said she did it. I mean, but you never know. I don't know. I don't even want to go there because I don't want to. I don't know. I'm just not going to go there.
But I know what I saw, what I witnessed, and what I felt. On the second floor of the blue house, there was a bathroom. I can still see the white clawfoot tub and the black and white checked floors. I was about 5 years old and sitting on the toilet watching Daddy Claude and my mother step their naked bodies into the tub.
Okay, and just so you guys know, there are at least 2 people that were really close to Dee Dee. I think 3 now. From the Bayou, from Golden Meadow, went to high school with Dee Dee, knew the family, still knows the family very well. And they said there is absolutely no way that any of them could get into those bathtubs together. There's no way. I don't want to push play, but I got another phone call because it's about to get raunchy. Sorry about that. I swear. After school drama.
My mother, at almost 30 years old, was a lot skinnier back then.
Sure.
Father
yeah,
and daughter
no.
trying to fit into the small tub together reminded me of those miniature circus cars filled with an illogical number of clowns.
Sorry, I paused it and I couldn't press play because I'm afraid she's going to talk about the pecan. So that's why there was a moment of silence there. Sorry.
Father and daughter trying to fit into the small tub together reminded me of those miniature circus cars filled with an illogical number of clowns.
No, you don't, Andy. Don't say
My mother
that.
and Claude had an intentional bath time. It wasn't like
Don't say that, Andy, unless you're into incest.
she'd already be in the tub and he'd decide to join her. They went into the room together and undressed. The whole nine. After my mother was done washing Daddy Claude's back and she turned so he could do hers, she'd call to me, "It's your turn." And she'd get
What?
out of the tub and undress me, carry me over, and plop me in the water. "We'll need to wash that pecan of yours," Claude
There
said,
you go.
as he
There's the pecan, okay? Yeah. Like, what? This is just bizarre. How would you even remember that? Didn't she say they moved out of that house by the time she was 5? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, it involves incest. Yeah.
After my mother was done washing Daddy Claude's back and she turned so he could do hers, she'd call to me, "It's your turn." And she'd get out of the tub and undress me, carry me over, and plop me in the water. "We'll need to wash that pecan of yours," Claude said, as he lathered soap on his hands, my mother leaving the bathroom only to check on us intermittently. At 5 years old, I didn't think much of him cleaning my pecan.
Trigger warning if you need a trigger warning.
At 5 years old, I didn't think much of him cleaning my pecan. The bath stopped after we managed to move into subsidized housing in Golden Meadow, just a turn from the Blue House. But when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mother and I were in a car accident. She was in the hospital for 2 months. Her tibia and fibula were broken, and she needed to have plates and rods and screws put in, which never resulted in the bone fusion her doctors had hoped for. Afterward, she experienced chronic pain, which led her to be prescribed pain meds, which led to my addiction to her opioids. In order to help her recover and care for me, we moved in with Claude and Laura in their new house. While she recuperated for several months, my mother and I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. I remember Daddy Claude moseying over like an old grizzly bear to where I was lying. His hand moved toward my pull-up diaper like it was a pot of honey. Mom's arm swiftly intervened, like a human fly swatter. She shooed Daddy's hand away. He grunted and walked out of the room. Her message to keep his hands off was too late. Daddy had already crossed the line that should never have been approached. While my mother was in the hospital after her leg injury, I was cared for by Laura, who was a former nurse, and Daddy Claude. They were vigilant with my medication doses and knew how to administer food through my feeding tube. I had a permanent feeding tube that was attached to my abdomen when I was about 9 years old, soon after the motorcycle accident with Daddy Claude. Unlike the portrayal in the act, my mother never blended real food and fed it to me through the tube. My feeding tube was used strictly to administer water, liquid nutrition supplements, and medications. When I got to county jail, I weighed 92 pounds at almost 24 years old, due to a daily menu of Pediasure and other electrolyte drinks. Since I was pulled out of any formal school around pre-K age, my days were wide open with me and Daddy Claude cuddling up on the couch to watch The Price is Right. On rainy days, I'd stay in my PJs, and on sticky hot days, I'd lounge in just a t-shirt. Being with Daddy Claude filled a void I felt but didn't know how to articulate. I knew from watching television that kids had moms and dads. I knew that technically I had a dad, but he didn't live with us, and my mother
Jan.
had told me he was very busy with his new children. I craved the kind of attention a dad might give his little girl. Claude, with his arm around me and me curled in a side ball resting my head on his chest, was my daddy, so that's what I called him. The grazing of his hand along my clothes was deceptively innocent at first. We'd call out to the game show contestants on television, $100 for convection ovens and juicers, and insist on them choosing door number 2. I'd hardly noticed Daddy's finger tracing circle shapes on my shoulder
Oh
or
my
my waist.
God.
The touch would linger in ways that made me uncomfortable, though I didn't fully understand why. I was not even close to puberty, and sex was not yet a discussion. This is a daddy's love, was really what I thought.
Okay. Ugh. To me, this is just Gypsy's sick mind, okay? I'm telling you, she has a thing, a daddy. I've been talking about her dang daddy issues, and this is why. I don't know. I may have to skip over the next part. I can't remember what's coming up, but she's trying to imply things. But in the docu-series, she said that it happened in the shed, and now we got it happening with The Price is Right and shit. Mm. This is what a daddy's love. Yeah. All right, buckle up, guys. This next part may be really bumpy.
This is a daddy's love, was really what I thought. Daddies take bath time with their daughters. One day, while watching TV, Daddy Claude scooped me up from where I was lying on the couch. I want to show you something, Possum. He carried me toward his bedroom where Laura was napping. She had frequent fainting spells that would knock her out. So Daddy walked us past her bed and, like a groom carrying his bride over the threshold, took me into a walk-in closet.
A walk-in
He turned
closet.
the light on, shut the door, and deposited me on top of a plastic dresser, like the ones you see in Walmart, with clear drawers and white casing. Anyway, I sat in my nightgown and asked, "What is it?" He pulled my nightgown above my knees and spread them apart. The threshold he had crossed.
Okay, and I'm skipping over that. But she goes into detail, obviously. Yeah. It's really gross. No, they don't have room to get in a tub or a freaking walk-in closet. I don't know. Whatever. It's fucking gross, Gypsy. And remember, she wrote this book because she can't wait for her daughter to read it one day. Right. She had fainting spells. What? Fainting spells? She just passed out, fainted in the bed? None of it's making
The
sense.
threshold he had crossed me over became the Rubicon as he carried me back out to the couch, a giver of a love I no longer wanted. They could arrest me for this, Possum, he said. But as usual, no adults would notice or rescue me. During a 2-hour trip to New Orleans about a year later, I decided to tell my mother what Daddy Claude did. "I have something to tell you, Mama," I said while she held the wheel of the car steady. Daddy Claude touched me. Tears streamed down her face as if she knew exactly what I meant. She bluntly asked, "Did he put his finger inside you?" "No, Mama," I said, scared of how sad I had made her, regretful of my decision to tell. "It wasn't anything, Mama. Don't worry," I added, reassuring her with my backtracking. The subject didn't come up again until almost a decade later, when I was about 19. I asked my mother why she didn't have a.
Now, Daisy, like, luckily, I never was a victim of SA, but I feel for people that were, that have to hear this shit because we know that she's a liar. So I get what you're saying. So, if you feel so compelled to, maybe call the bookstores, anybody, like I heard Target and Walmart are carrying this book. Disgusting. If my children came across this book, it should not be allowed. I don't know what to say, man. I don't think it should be allowed in bookstores, period. But you need to put it in the X-rated aisle.
I asked my mother why she didn't have a boyfriend or a new husband. I don't want a man in my life, not after what your father did to me, and not after Claude. She began to cry and detailed how Claude had molested her. I cried with her, letting out all of my emotions about all those years he abused me, bonding my confusion with hers. It was one of the only authentic moments I ever had with my mother. It was the only time I ever heard her say to me, "I'm so sorry." 5. Pof Tibet. Poor little thing. My mother limited my interactions with others as much as possible. I was a daisy in the Girl Scouts, but when it came time to graduate to become a brownie, I got stuck there, never becoming a junior. My mom volunteered for the Girl Scouts, but we changed troops a lot, always starting over. Because my exposure to anyone other than my mother was so limited, I had no idea that the way I lived was different or unusual. How could I? I attended school for 1 year, kindergarten. After that, Mama pulled me out to homeschool me,
Thought it was second
except that was a
grade.
lie.
Thought it was
She
second
didn't
grade.
register me
How,
as a homeschooler with
how the hell did you say your mom never educated you after that, yet you were reading Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, etc., etc.? Like, make that make sense. Mm. How many years? Hold on. Oh, I missed that one. Where did it go? How many years did he abuse her? They didn't live there long. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I'm so sorry I knowingly let you in the care of a child. Yeah. It make it make sense, because it doesn't. You're a brownie before you're a Girl Scout. Yeah. What did she say? I missed that part. It is wild. Yeah. I'm not sure memberships. I only downloaded it because I got a free 3 months, so used my last coin. But yes, yeah, return that shit. Return it. And if you have like the actual book, I suggest you burn it and then film yourself burning it and then upload it to TikTok or YouTube and then tag Gypsy in it.
She didn't register me as a homeschooler with either state that I lived in. No school officials seemed to notice. I remembered when we'd see new doctors, and the intake forms asked where I went to school. Mama would just list the local school I was zoned for.
Sorry, I've got to read your comment, Phaedra. Stop using "he carried me like a groom" if it was abuse. It's fucking disgusting. No one should describe their abuse that way. Yeah, it's very odd, right? Very descriptive.
I remembered when we'd see new doctors, and the intake forms asked where I went to school. Mama would just list the local school I was zoned for. That was that. Nobody followed up or questioned us. Everyone who hears my story is appalled at the medical institution's failure.
I'm just saying, I don't think that my kid's doctor's office has ever, I mean, maybe they have, I don't know, checked to make sure that the school I put is the actual school they go to. I don't know. Maybe they have. I could be wrong. But they don't really question that like that, Gypsy. It doesn't work that way. You don't even know how the medical system works, and I don't either. Okay. I don't really either. But yeah, they don't check. Thank you. I didn't think so.
Everyone who hears my story is appalled at the medical institutions failing me, but the education system was actually the first to let me fall through the cracks. Without a broader range of exposure to how others live their lives, I didn't suspect that our daily schedule was odd or dysfunctional. We woke up each day at around 11 a.m. I'd have my medicines. At the start of my day, my mother usually slammed a sealed tube of Pillsbury biscuits against the countertop to pop it open, and she'd bake them on a baking sheet for breakfast. I always thought the way she made the pop sound was like magic. When the whole house smelled buttery, she'd prepare my Pediasure and meds and administer them to me through my feeding tube. She would eat the biscuits herself. We'd watch The Bold and the Beautiful. We would only get dressed if we had to run an errand.
Gypsy has a thing with biscuits and gravy. Oh, I kind of want to, in a little bit, we'll play some more of that. Yeah, and her Baba. But I want to, we haven't, I don't know how much any of you guys have listened to, if you've listened to any of it at all, but we need to listen to The Night of the Murder, because her story changes, of course, again. Yeah, that's why she gave up her cooter for biscuits and gravy. That's right. Yep, them biscuits, y'all.
We would only get dressed if we had to run an errand. We'd watch a movie if there wasn't an errand to run. She didn't eat meat, so most of the time she made sweet peas over rice for her dinner. We would watch another movie. Then we'd start our night routine. She'd bathe me, dress me, and put me into our bed. Technically, I had my own bed in my own bedroom, but ever since I could remember, I slept on the left side of my mother's bed. Next, she'd turn on my breathing machine, which actually didn't help me breathe at all. Then she'd turn out the lights. My routine was all I had, but it never included going to school or outside to play. The times I spent outside were so few and far between that I remember.
I don't have memberships or monetization right now because YouTube is being an asshole to me. And I can't reapply until March. So, yeah. But if anybody feels so inclined to donate, I have a QR code on the screen that I think works. I think it works. I need to get my Nightbot in here to drop. Let's see if that, I'm just going to check that QR code, make sure it still works. Yeah, it works. So you can scan that little QR code, but always appreciated, never expected.
The times I spent outside were so few and far between that I remember each one vividly. I was a very lonely child. When I was young, maybe up to age 14, I thought I could make friends with the other kids who were like me. With other Make-A-Wish kids or other wheelchair-bound kids I would compete against in the Gumbo Games, which was Louisiana's smaller version of the Special Olympics. I remember one girl who I saw a lot at these events. She had spina bifida and was always accompanied by an at-home health aide. But then Mama moved us away, and we didn't see each other after that. With all my arts and crafts, I would trace and cut out circles and squares and long rectangles, and I'd piece together life-size paper people and sit them on my couch with me. Sometimes I would make several of them and have a playgroup in my house. Being flanked by the paper people while watching TV made me feel less alone, like I belonged to a community even if it was an imaginary one. I had a rubber pet rat, the kind they sell during Halloween time. I even had a friend that was a snowman. One glorious memory I have playing with Mama was when we first moved to Aurora, Missouri, before we were blessed to receive our Habitat for Humanity house. It was our first winter experience. Being from Louisiana, seeing snow was like someone shook the snow globe I lived inside, making me a princess in a little kingdom of Cutney dreams. Mama and I built a snowman and we named him Frosty the Mardi Gras Snowman. Like I said, Mama was all about her culture. Her Cajun spice melted the snow that day. We laughed and threw snowballs, me sitting in the snow, my legs frozen by her command, my heart warmed by the icicles crying blue droplets in the low light of the winter sun. We didn't even own a shovel. After one big snowstorm blocked the walkway to our door, a neighbor yelled across the yard to us, holding up a shovel. "Hey, you're gonna need one of these!" We all laughed because only people who had never seen snow before would glorify the mess. Soon enough, we learned, like everyone else, to dread the aftermath of a wintry wrath. In terms of winter festivities, that one snowman building episode is all I have in my memory bank. Mama and I didn't celebrate Christmas or any other national holidays with anyone else. I mean, she gave me presents on Christmas, but it was never celebrated with family. Food and festive music and tradition were not things Mama infused in our routine. I never had the joy of a family meal or a New Year's Eve celebration. I wondered a lot about what Dad and Christy and their kids were up to, especially on New Year's Eve. I didn't know my dad very well, since we only saw each other once a year at best. Mama had moved me so far away from them, and Dad's job took him out of town a lot. I have tiny random memories of us at the mall, and one of my little brother Dylan and me at Walmart. He bought a Star Wars lightsaber, and I got a baby doll. Christy and Dad came to one of my wheelchair races once, but I didn't see them or talk to them much beyond that handful of visits. But I did know Dad was fun-loving because he made me laugh and had a lot of energy. I imagined them having New Year's Eve parties with neighbors and lots of music. I pushed away the thoughts of the other family I had somewhere, and we watched the ball drop in Times Square on television, Mama and me, while we heard horns and clacking cowbells of the world outside from inside our dark and gloomy snow globe. Like all worlds, our globe had its own rules.
Yeah, you looked so. I just can't. I fucking can't with her. Thank you to everybody who has sent me a Cash App or a PayPal. It is very much appreciated. Thank you guys so much. All right, here we go, guys. We're just going to keep on trucking, all right?
Like all worlds, our globe had its own rules, except our rules defied reality. In our world, you didn't have to be a baby to wear diapers or use bottles. In our world, you didn't use maxi pads or tampons during your period. You wore pull-ups. In our world, the hair on your head was as filthy as the hair on your vagina, and both places should be shaved clean. From the
But
time I was born to
we
when
are
I was a month shy of 24 years old, Mama had never weaned me off the bottle.
Oh god, here we go with the bottle. But before that, you already told us about the shaving stuff, Gypsy. Like, why do you have to keep saying that? And I also don't believe it because why did you have to shave yourself before Nick got there? I mean, we saw your little Bic razor with all your pubic hairs in it, but I thought you had to be shaved all the time. Like, none of this makes sense. It's all bullshit. All right, here we go with her baba.
In our world, the hair on your head was as filthy as the hair on your vagina, and both places should be shaved clean. From the time I was born to when I was a month shy of 24 years old, Mama had never weaned me off the bottle. The baby bottle was my safety blanket, my security that I turned to when I was nervous before a doctor's appointment or surgery. A soothing mechanism to help me sleep, or just a comfort and companion when I would watch television or draw. It was filled with Pediasure. Strawberry flavor was my favorite, and I would stick the bottle underneath my armpit to warm it up. I was extremely picky when it came to the nipples of the bottles. I didn't like the brown ones and preferred the clear nipples because they controlled the flow better. I didn't like the fluid to come out too fast. I preferred the bottle to the feeding tube, of course, because I got to enjoy the taste of the nourishment. My sucking on the bottle wasn't a secret. We packed it up like you would a diaper bag when we ran errands. Of course, people would look sideways at first at a 13-year-old whipping out her bottle. But Mama would remind them, she's very mentally slow, or it's one of the two ways she can get her sustenance. To which people replied with a nod, yes, of course, makes total sense. As a result of my late-stage bottle sucking, I developed the same teeth as SpongeBob SquarePants, and all my remaining teeth were ultimately extracted for a reason I still don't know.
Okay. What do you mean for a reason? The rest of your teeth were extracted for a reason that you still don't know. You just said it, Gypsy. You were sucking a bottle. Look up the definition of bottle rot. You rotted your teeth and messed them up by sucking on a bottle and not brushing them. Okay? And they didn't rip out all your teeth. I'm just saying, most of your teeth were capped and they had to pull your front teeth, not all of them. And I don't understand how you don't get that it was not for just, it was for a reason. And the reason is that you were sucking that damn bottle, drinking Pepsis, all of the things, and not taking care of your teeth. It's that simple. It's not Munchausen by proxy. You needed it done. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
And all my remaining teeth were ultimately extracted for a reason I still don't know. For public appearances, like when we were being interviewed by a newspaper reporter or at a charity event, Mama brought my sippy cup. That was another method of my nourishment, in use right up until I got arrested.
Oh my.
I had several sippy cups with Buzz Lightyear, Elsa, and Nemo on them. This was all so normal to me, sitting there on the rug of our home, sucking away sweetly, until one day my normal was disrupted by an abnormal flow.
All right, get ready.
Around the time I was 13, about a year before Hurricane Katrina, I was sitting on the floor in the living room of our apartment in Slidell, Louisiana, playing with dolls and watching The Little Mermaid. I noticed something wet and maroon colored beneath me, so dark I thought I was sitting in barbecue sauce at first.
Oh, barbecue sauce.
I lifted myself into my wheelchair and called for Mama, crying that something was wrong with me. "You're bleeding, baby," she said, as if she were expecting my bottom to fall out like that.
What?
Okay,
Well,
this is what's
hold
going to
on.
happen to you. You're going to bleed like that.
Look, this is way, way TMI. But no one, that's not how your period works. I'm sorry, it's just not. When you start it, it's not like your bottom falls out, okay? It's not like that at all. You're gross. You're fucking gross. Yeah, the barbecue sauce again. What? And why do we need to know this? Why is this in the book? What is the relevance here?
Okay,
Is your period your mom's fault too? Because I have a feeling it's gonna be your mom's fault.
okay, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to bleed like that for a good part of your life. That was about all the knowledge I would get from her about a period. She never even called it a period or menses or anything like that. She just kept saying graphically, "You're gonna bleed." That's when she left the room and returned with a clean pull-up. "Here," she said. "Let's get you changed and try to get you as clean as we can. Bleeding will happen to you." To this day, I wish I had more motherly words to keep in my head every time my time of the month comes. I wish Mama could have been a mother in that moment and explained to me how blessed I am to have a regular period. Because I will reproduce one day. Make life a sacred superpower. She made me feel the opposite of special.
A sacred superpower. That is so fucking weird to me. I'm sorry. See, it's her mom's fault again because her mom didn't tell her that now that meant she could have a baby, which is a sacred superpower.
She made me feel the opposite of special, speaking of menstruation with a tone of gore and disgust.
What?
I remember when I first
See, I told you her period is also her mom's fault as well. She found a way to make her mom the villain of her period. It's super light at first. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not how it works, okay? You're in 244 months old. Was she online at 13? No. I don't believe so. She said before, I think that was before they moved out of Louisiana. Hey, Bryn.
I remember when I first saw the movie Carrie in prison, and the mom in that movie was so warped when it came to Carrie's monthly. I felt oddly connected. Oh my God, that mother is just like my mother, I thought. My mother lied to doctors all the way into my later
Did your mom beat you with wire hangers? I'm just saying. Oh, you're talking about Carrie. I'm thinking about Mommy Dearest. Never mind.
My mother lied to doctors all the way into my later teen years, saying that I never got my first period. That was very concerning to all of them. We needed to undergo another battery of tests. Maybe my pituitary gland was the problem, or maybe they should look at my bladder for good measure. To test my bladder and urine, I had a catheter inserted 4 times, which is so painful. I never asked her why the lies about this, especially when we both knew that I bled every month on schedule. I was just never a why kind of kid. And I didn't want to steal her thunder.
Her
I saw
thunder.
how she soaked in the attention and limelight, even though it was only local. Beyond the interpersonal attention,
D'Angelo.
in the form of the sympathy and martyrdom she delighted in. She basked in the bright spotlight when the cameras rolled. Turn on the news, she'd say to someone she had called on the phone. Pick up this Sunday paper. You'll never guess who's in it. She'd tease with stars in her eyes. The notoriety added a dimension to her disease. Yes, the Munchausen syndrome by proxy was the most dangerous part of the abuse, but it also acted as a backstage pass to my mother's internal cinematic show. Whatever that movie in her mind was, I wasn't the star of it. Mama's friend from high school said, "Your mama wanted to be famous. She wanted to marry a rock star or an actor." When the press arrived, Mama would be doing all of the talking, while I numbly waited for my cue. Like a stage mother, beauty queen Dee Dee fed me my lines. It's a dream come true. This makes me so happy. My mom is my best friend. Through me and through the script we memorized, Mama could achieve some level of fame she had long desired. Even when nobody was there, the act was still on and the script was still in play. When my dad would call me, she became just like one of those stage moms or dance moms, mouthing lines or counting cadence. I never had a moment alone on the phone with my father, nor an authentic conversation. She always hovered. I can't imagine how my dad must have felt knowing that every time he wanted to check in on me, my mother was the first line of defense. He had to get through her, and sometimes he didn't. When she'd answer his call, she'd set up the expectation for how the call would go by saying something like, "She's tired today," or "We're about to run errands." So, like an official at a football game, she set the clock. After she preempted the conversation, she'd hand me the phone, me in my wheelchair pulling the cord on the landline, saying an awkward hello to this man who I, at the time, only referred to as my father instead of dad. Dad felt too comfortable and familiar for the long distance relationship we had. "Tell him about the new doll I bought you," Mama whispered before I could say anything beyond hello. "Hi. Um, Mama bought me a new doll for being brave at the doctor's yesterday." "Wow, you're a lucky girl, Gypsy," Dad answered. "What did you name her?" Already bored and too far from her agenda, Mama continued her prompt. "Tell him that I stayed up with you all night last week because of your fever." "I had a fever last week," I parroted, "and Mama stayed up all night with me. We were so tired." My dad cleared his throat and said, "Well, I always tell Dee Dee she does a fine job being your mama." Then Mama would move around to face me and whisper, "All right, that's enough. Tell him you were about to leave."
Look, I think she's got a thing for her dad. It's weird. I know it's gross, but I'm telling you, her daddy issues. She sexualizes her daddy issues. You'll see. You will see.
"Tell him you were about to leave." "Well, I have to go now. We have to leave."
Hey, Batty.
When Dad and I'd hang up, he'd say, "I love you." And I'd say the same, parroting him, as I wasn't sure we actually could know each other well enough to love each other. Mama
Y'all
would look at me
remember? Hold
twisted.
on. Y'all remember when she was released from prison and they go to the Airbnb and Rod and Gypsy like have that slow dance together. I thought that was whatever. I don't know.
Mama would look at me twisted, as if I were a pretty roommate who was after her boyfriend, like I was the competition. Is that why she kept me ugly and infantilized? If I came of age, would I be prettier or skinnier or win the crown at the pageant instead of her? She grabbed one of the cats and baby talked with it, loving on her and talking about me as if I weren't in the room. Come on, Teabag do. Give your mama a little sweet kiss. More often,
One of their cats was also named Tibidoo, or however the hell you say that.
more often, after we hung up, Mama would badmouth my dad for a long time. She loved him so much she hated him. Her disgust for my father was the reason she told me that she kept my hair so short as a child.
What?
Ugh, when your hair is longer, you look just like your father, she'd say, spewing venom.
What?
I never felt too bad for him because I was well aware from Mama of what a bad person he was. His poor new children were now the ones being abused. Mama would never put up with his abuse. I felt very lucky she protected me from him all those years. Getting attention and drawing attention are two different things.
Thibodeau.
Maybe she thought conversations like this earned her accolades from outsiders, especially my dad. Or telling others about the non-existent abuse at the hands of my father made her even braver, more of a feminist. But when she got the attention of Child Protective Services, my mother deflected the attention instead of embracing it. I was not drugged the day the woman from the Department of Family Services, DFS, gave us a surprise visit on October 26, 2009. I've been told the act portrayed it that way. I still haven't found it necessary to watch the series. The truth is, I was still quite trusting of my mother at this time. The way I remember it, we were watching television in the bedroom together when the doorbell rang. I was so excited. We never had guests, especially surprise ones, so I remember eagerly wheeling out to the door and being the one to answer it. When I opened the door, I was met by two women from DFS and a deputy sheriff. Is your mother here? Asked one of the visitors. Yes. Mama walked out as on cue, and the DFS officer said, Ma'am, can you come out to the front porch, please? She did, and the four of them talked outside for a few minutes and then returned to the living room, where I was interviewed. I get how this has become another situation that people ask about with frustration. Why didn't you tell them anything when you had the chance? I didn't think my life was odd at the time. This was before I had access to a laptop and boys and widened my lens on what reality should look like. Mama and I went to the movies and stayed up at night to talk about Brave or whatever new movie was being hyped. Sometimes we slept in a tent together in the middle of the living room. She'd hold a flashlight in front of her face, like in the Blair Witch Project, and make me laugh with her spooky howls. The cat would join us and chase after the spotlight from the flashlight, making us both lovingly chuckle. I look back now, and I think maybe if DFS had asked the right questions, they may have sensed something was off. Their questions beg for negative answers. Are there any bruises on your body, Gypsy? No, because there weren't yet. Can we look at your legs and your arms, Gypsy? They did. They searched me for signs of physical abuse. They went to see my bedroom, where it looked like it had been decorated by a unicorn or something. Pink and magical, princess sheets and stuffed animals galore. Tell us about your life, Gypsy, I remember being asked. From the DFS reports I now have, I see their visit was initiated by a hotline call from St. John's Hospital, stating that a doctor could not find any symptoms that would support what my mother alleged was wrong with me. Further, the inconsistent information regarding my birth dates and other personal information, as well as lack of a medical diagnosis, prompted DFS to determine whether I was a runaway or a missing juvenile. They also wanted to ensure that Mama was my biological mother. So while they focused on asking for Mama's driver's license and my social security card, I showed off my toys and dolls and dresses to them. The report states that Mama told them she had been in a bad marriage and changed our names and locations to avoid my father. But in the same report, it says, when confronted about all the inconsistent information that she had provided to the hospital, Claudine stated she didn't know why the birth dates and personal information were wrong. So which is it? She didn't know why the dates were wrong, or she changed them to avoid her abusive husband? The blatantly contradicting answers to the same question are so obvious to me as lies. But the investigators didn't seem to notice. Instead, the report continues. DFS and I cleared the scene without further incident. They never came back. Another institution that dropped the ball. As each year passed and another surgery or painful test was performed, my childhood innocence began to be replaced with the ability to observe and make connections about my mother's behaviors and what she instructed me to do or say. After that DFS visit, Mama became paranoid about strangers. She disconnected our doorbell and made sure all of the windows had black trash bags over them. Equally weird was when I found my Medicaid card, which revealed my actual birth year of 1991.
I'm just saying, there was not one window covered with a black trash bag, not in the crime scene photos. Not with trash bags. But, carry on. Oops.
Equally weird was when I found my Medicaid card, which revealed my actual birth year of 1991. I was living a life in which I thought I was 4 years younger than I was. She told me it was a typo. I believed her. But I sensed the discrepancy shifting the tectonic plate of our private continent, separating us and allowing more suspicion to creep in. I had been taught to live a life of lies and deception, an accomplice to my mother's fraud, which made me feel sinful and burdened with a feeling of filth. For a Catholic, guilt can keep you up nights. Catholicism in southern Louisiana go together like bread and butter. In Golden Meadow, everyone had a shrine to the Virgin Mary on their lawn. I was christened Catholic and grew up going to Catholic Mass every Sunday with my daddy Claude and Momsy Emma. Mama used to tell everyone, Gypsy's going to be a nun when she grows up. Growing up near New Orleans, there was a strong Catholic influence. Obviously, the biggest being Fat Tuesday, or in French, Mardi Gras, which signified the beginning of Lent, the holiest time of the year that leads up to Easter, Christ's resurrection. But there was a flip side, the supernatural influence of voodoo and witchcraft, pagan rituals, tarot and fortune-telling. When my mother put me in Vacation Bible School, where she'd work as a volunteer, she bought plastic mini statues of the saints, like St. Joseph and St. Agnes, from the gift shop. I already thought I was going to be a nun, so I made an altar in my bedroom where I placed the saints. I aligned my stuffed animals as a congregation, along with my cats, and we'd all attend little church. I was the priest. I led us all in prayer and gave out communion, feeding crackers and grape juice to my cats. After I started to get glimpses of Mama's true ways, I'd pray to God at my personal altar and at Sunday Mass to send me a blessing to make all the ickiness go away. No blessing came. No family members came. My father didn't come. The doctors didn't come. No teacher or principal came. DFS came and left. I was mad at God because I'd asked him in church, and before bed, and in my head, over and over, God, make this tormenting hell stop. Please help. But there was no help in sight. At least, not in my sight. 6. Lagniappe. A little something extra you probably weren't expecting. Everyone in Mama's family knew she was a hoarder. Before we arrived in Springfield, Missouri, when I was 15 years old, we had been traveling light. With just the clothes in our suitcases and a few of our favorite things, my mother's baby pillow and my stuffed blue dog, ingeniously named Blue Doggy, we bounced around from the time I was 8. I imagine that without a permanent place for my mother to store all her emotional baggage, she doubled down on collecting physical baggage once we landed in Springfield, where we were blessed to receive our Habitat for Humanity house on Volunteer Way. We frequented yard sales and bought crap just to buy it, like game consoles, souvenirs from other people's vacations, and even furniture we didn't need.
It sounds really awful, Gypsy. Like, I can't.
We frequented yard sales and bought crap just to buy it, like game consoles, souvenirs from other people's vacations, and even furniture we didn't need. It was mostly clothing she hoarded. My mother couldn't say no to a donation. She loved a good going out of business sale, even if the items on 90% markdown were useless to us. She was a shopaholic for sure. Maybe this was another coping mechanism for dealing with her clinical depression. The days after the holidays were her favorite time to run out to JCPenney or Dillard's to snatch up prom dresses after prom season ended, to Michael's to round up next year's Christmas decorations, or she'd buy merch for events after the fact, like a bicentennial celebration t-shirt a year after the fireworks show. Then there were the things we'd steal. My mother taught me the art of shoplifting at a very young age. She had a family history of kleptomania, I found out recently. Legend has it that my grandmother Emma had been arrested for stealing, and she had been caught and banned from food and clothing stores on more than one occasion. My mother grew up with a comfortable middle-class lifestyle, so any thievery must have just been for the high. Did Emma teach my mother how to steal, which is why Mama taught me how to? While sometimes I believe we stole because she wanted to get me things that we simply couldn't afford, I also think she experienced a thrill from the satisfaction of knowing we pulled one over. I remember my mother stealing a wheelchair from the Children's Hospital in Kansas City. I just had surgery on my lazy eye, a condition I actually had, and she wheeled me right out of the building into our van. Later, she took nail polish remover and a toothbrush and scrubbed off the hospital's name. The hospital had trusted us to use the wheelchair until we got to the car. She loaded it into the car as nonchalantly as you would a bag of groceries, and we drove away. I imagined her thinking, I wonder when or if they'll ever notice it's gone. We actually had several, maybe 5, wheelchairs that sat throughout our small home. Like her pewter wizard figurines, my mother collected wheelchairs. We had a collapsible one, a jazzy-powered wheelchair, and another powered wheelchair that was custom-made, so everything from the seat.
Okay, we're going to have to skip around. I'm getting bored. The way she said had a condition I actually had. Yeah. Usually a nurse will walk you down. I wouldn't be surprised if Dee Dee stole a wheelchair, to be honest. Some people steal for survival, some steal for the rush because they're addicted to opiates. Gypsy steals because she has no conscience. Yeah. All right, let's see. Where should we skip to? Because I'm also over here looking through the Greene County case file because I was trying to find that CPS report. Let me see. Do you guys want me to just keep playing it from here, or do you want to skip around a little bit? Thank you, Bethany and Yaddle. Chapter 16, the second sentence. Okay. Let's see. County jail. Wait. Okay, we're going to go to meeting Nick, okay?
10. Meeting Nick. I met Nick on ChristianDatingForFree.com on October 12th, 2012. Creating my profile
Actually,
allowed
wait.
me the freedom.
I want y'all to hear about the Dan stuff. Let's see.
9. Allons. Let's go. Maybe Mama really had magic powers. because in the months leading up to my second escape attempt in
Okay, we're going to go back a little bit.
2008, Grigri, a curse. It's so cliche, but by the time I was real age 19, I couldn't turn off the need for a man, any man, in my life. I'd started a secret MySpace page, and then a secret Facebook account. Mama and I had seen an advertisement on TV for VisionCon, a pop culture convention held every year in Missouri. We went 3 years in a row, beginning in 2009. I waited for every spring to come just to dress up and do something fun with Mama. So I began adding people from the convention to my online friends list. I received a Facebook message from Dan around March 2011. In his friend request, he reminded me that he was the drunk guy who bumped into my wheelchair at VisionCon the month before. Dan was much older than me, in his 30s, and I thought I was 15. I already exhibited daddy issues as I grew to have a mad crush on him. Mama obviously didn't know I
Wait,
was
what?
spending months talking to Dan. I received a Facebook message from Dan around March 2011. In his friend request, he reminded me that he was the drunk guy who bumped into my wheelchair at VisionCon the month before. Dan was much older than me, in his 30s, and I thought I was 15. I already exhibited daddy issues as I grew to have a mad crush on him.
What? See, I'm telling y'all these daddy issues. Woo! Why does she sexualize her daddy issues? I just don't understand. My time to tan.
I already exhibited
Oh,
11.
Damn it.
9. If I had been allowed to walk, it would have been on eggshells. As I did, maybe Mama really had magic powers.
Wait.
Because
Sorry.
8. We went 3 years. Dan was much older than me. What kinds of concerts would I go? Dan was much older than me,
Sorry, guys.
in his 30s,
My
and
bad.
I thought I was 15. I already exhibited daddy issues as I grew to have a mad crush on him. Mama obviously didn't know I was spending months talking to Dan, exploring who I could be if allowed to be my own person. What color would my hair be if it were allowed to grow in? What kinds of restaurants would I like to eat at if I were allowed to eat? What kinds of concerts would I go to if I were allowed to listen to popular music? What kind of kisser would I be if I were allowed to see Dan? Dan was the first person I ever told that I could walk. I unburdened myself to him, telling him how my mother told stories to people, scolded me if she saw me accidentally move my legs, and how I was becoming increasingly worried about going to specialists. I was always high when talking to Dan, dreaming about moving away with him, being quirky and silly, always telling him jokes. One day, while Mama and I were being put up at the American Cancer Society Hope Lodge in Kansas City, while visiting doctors at Mercy Hospital, Dan and I communicated through phone calls on a government burner phone, one of 3 that Mama had. I hadn't done any rebelling yet, so Mama didn't have any reason not to trust me with one of her phones. Plus, she didn't think I had anyone to call or text anyway. So, she gave me the phone like you'd give an old cell phone to a child to play with as a toy. Mama was in the kitchen, and I was in the ensuite bathroom, pacing around the tiled floor while talking to Dan, like any typical teenage girl swooning over a boyfriend. I had called to tell him that I found my Medicaid card in my mother's wallet, and that despite her cover-up that it was a typo, I suspected I was older than my mom told me I was. The birth date on the card was 4 years earlier than I had known my birthday to be, July 27th, 1991. I was horrified, but also relieved to think that I could actually be 19 years old, not 15. I knew that my being of legal age could change a lot of things for me and Dan, so I put aside the thought that I was being held captive by an evil stepmother, and I focused on.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, that's right. Another lie. She says she was pacing around the bathroom. How are you doing that if you were supposed to be in your wheelchair?
I knew that my being of legal age could change a lot of things for me and Dan, So I put aside the thought that I was being held captive by an evil stepmother, and I focused on my fairy tale godmother granting my wish to be with my prince.
Oh my God.
Dan told me, if this is true, you don't have to stay with her. You can start a new life. Just as his words stirred my heart, Mama opened the door to the bathroom. Immediately, I hit the floor. I'm sorry, Mama, I said, covering my head with my hands. She grabbed the phone and heard a man's voice and hung up. Even behind closed doors, I was not ever to get out of my wheelchair, stand, or walk. I was in double jeopardy now. First, for walking, and second, for talking to a man. She just stood there without saying a word, letting me beg for mercy. Get in your chair. And now, get to the van, she ordered, and then grabbed the phone off the floor. Her calmness unsettled me. In the van, my stomach curled as I watched her eyes shift around the Kansas City streets. Mama, what's happening? Where are we going? She looked right through me. You goddamn whore, she said. We rounded the corner, and she pulled the minivan into an alleyway and threw the car into park. She turned to me, looked at my legs, and began punching them. She attacked every healthy, active muscle in my quads and thighs, like she was a
I don't believe that at all, Gypsy. Why would you have never spoken about this until now? Because you made it up for your book of lies. Bullshit. Hey, irate unicorn.
She attacked every healthy, active muscle in my quads and thighs, like she was a boxer and I was a piece of meat hanging in a freezer locker.
Please.
I didn't know you could bleed without cutting the skin. Redness began to rise to the surface and create little blood clots, which later formed blood blisters.
Blood blisters?
She had never closed fists.
Do you know what a blood blister is? Because they're not usually caused from someone punching your legs, right? The only blood blisters I ever had was like if I pinched my skin or something. I don't know. Blood blisters. Okay. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell the cops that your mom was beating your legs? You're full of shit. Dee Dee didn't do that. I don't believe Dee Dee did that. No. It's just part of her story, her make-believe, her delusions.
She had never closed fist punched me before. I sobbed so hard. I couldn't catch my breath. I'm sorry, Mama. Please stop. She looked checked out, and I knew she couldn't hear me above her own disgusted yelling. What did you tell him? Where did you meet him? Who is he? I leave for a moment and this is what you do? She was getting winded, but each question was followed by a blow to my legs. How much did you tell him? I didn't tell him anything, Mama. Liar! Fucking cunt! Then she grabbed my face with one hand and squeezed my cheeks together, forcing my lips to pucker. The tips of her fingernails dug into my skin. She looked me square in the eyes. I hate you, she said. My fear of being under her thumb forever went from a feeling to an urgent fact. She thought she had her ultimate control of me locked in, but I had veered outside her radius, causing her to lose sight of me. She declared a dogfight, where her new combat maneuver was to gain positional control over me. Punch after punch, the shiny bruises on my legs were marks of the true colors of her soul.
Oh
black
my God.
and blue.
Oh my.
Mama read my text messages and then hastily dialed Dan's number. She didn't introduce herself when he answered. You know she's only 15, she barked. If you contact her again, I'll call the cops. Dan and I turned down the heat after that, but only for a couple of weeks. When I sensed her cloud of anger evaporating, I began talking on the phone to Dan again, this time to unload all the suspicions I had about my medical history. It was a relief to confide in someone. He showed me attention and let me speak. I thought it was possible for him to take me out of my captive existence. He told me he had a farm in Arkansas, that we could run away there. and he'd hide me. I told him I didn't think I had cancer and that I could walk, and I was so confused. Who am I? Who is she? And why is she doing this? You are technically an adult, Dan said. You can start a new life. I look back on my first attempt to run away with Dan as the biological and natural urge brought on by growing up, individualizing. Puberty was a taboo subject, but just the same, along with the metamorphosis of my body, my developing prefrontal cortex was taking me for a joyride. As hard as Mama tried to conceal the changes, she was powerless over the deluge of hormones and the critical thinking that became a voice in my head. Just because I couldn't see a woman in the mirror doesn't mean my brain wasn't fighting hard as hell to become one. I didn't understand this at the time, but I believe it was the intense power of nature that guided my compulsion to separate from her. We all have to grow up. Turns out mothers can't fight Mother Nature. At around 2 o'clock in the morning of Good Friday, April 22nd, Dan texted Mama's phone, which I had hidden in my dresser drawer on my side of the bed. I'm in the hospital, the text said. I got beat up real bad. I'd like you to be with me. So I grabbed the phone and my government phone, which had run out of minutes, and stuffed them inside a backpack, full of girl-woman confusion. I had to go to him. I packed up a Lilo and Stitch movie, my baby bottle, and a change of nipples, a pair of stolen jeans, and stolen lingerie. As I stole Mama's cash and Oxy stash, I was scared as hell. I threw on a pair of oversized jeans, since I didn't know my size. I had stolen them a few weeks before in preparation for running away. The jeans felt scratchy at first. It was the first time I wore anything fashionable.
Hold on. Let me see. Her idea of a woman is very twisted. I agree. I was saying this the other day, but it probably didn't make sense unless you've heard the book. But I think, I don't know. It's just hard to explain. But like, I feel like Gypsy thought by killing her mother and getting rid of all those photos and disappearing, like that was gonna be her, make her be a woman. I don't know how to explain it. How did you steal lingerie if Mama was all? Yeah, I know, right? She told Nick she had name brand clothes. That's right, she sure did. She said she had all these fancy clothes. They were all princess dresses. But then in another breath earlier says that her mom dressed her like a boy. No, you never were dressed like a boy. Mm-mm-mm.
The jeans felt scratchy at first. It was
Oh
the
my
first
God.
time I wore anything fashionable. I put on a stolen black tank top over a red bra that was 2 sizes too big, and a beach wave blonde wig. I scribbled a note in the darkness of the kitchen, left it on the seat of my wheelchair, and slipped out the back door. Dear Mother, I know I could walk. I don't think I have cancer. I don't feel sick. I know that I'm really 19. I want to live my own life as an independent woman. I love you. It's just time for me to spread my wings and fly. I'm going up to St. Louis. I love you. Your grown-up daughter. Walking up the street, I felt out of breath because I wasn't used to carrying the weight of my own body. In the middle of the night, I walked to the subdivision of the houses across the street, knocked on a stranger's door, and asked for a ride to see my boyfriend in the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital emergency room, I texted Dan. I had been in this same ER too many times to count with my mom. My adrenaline was pumping, and I just wanted to lie as low as possible for fear I'd be recognized. I stayed with Dan until he was released, and we caught a ride home with his cousin. Dan was couch surfing at a friend's house, so his cousin took us back there. When we arrived, I was tentative with Dan. Looking at the bongs and the bugs around the apartment, I was disheartened that I hadn't escaped the perfect picture I had drawn in my mind. Come lay with me, Dan said, as he showed me to the spare room where he lay down on a mattress. I joined him, my hand covering my feeding tube, a gaping symbol of how starved I was. I lay with Dan, pecked him on the cheek, fidgeting my body so he wouldn't feel the tube, and willing myself to fit into him like a human jigsaw. When will we leave tomorrow? I asked him, trusting he had handled the logistics. That's when he told me he couldn't leave the state. He was on parole. I didn't know what parole was and began to cry. I was partly let down, partly scared for what this would mean for me. Dan had been in jail? I risked so much by leaving Mama, and now I was with someone who couldn't take care of me. I couldn't go back to her house, especially not after I lied, stole, and ran away. But how could I go with him? I spoke with Dan in a panic. I was sandwiched between two hopeless options. I'll find work in St. Louis, Dan said, trying to reassure me. Then Dan's friend knocked on the bedroom door and leaned against the doorframe. Hey, what's your name? He asked, with a knowing look on his face. Gypsy, I answered, instantly regretful of telling the truth. Your mother's here. It happened so fast, but in slow motion. My brain couldn't quite catch up to what was happening. It was 6 or 7 in the morning, and she had tracked me down, with the help of some convention friends who knew Dan. I stood up from the bed. She looked at my legs with the same disdain she had in the alleyway. Where's the money? Mama asked, eyeballing Dan. Gypsy, talk to me on the porch. I don't know what Dan or his friends were thinking, but like a puppy dog, I followed her to the porch. Get in the van, she said with a hint of understanding. We'll talk about this. No, Mama. I know that I'm 19 years old, and I can be with him if I want to. She didn't react or try to gaslight me. Instead, she bargained as if I had attained some equality and control of my destiny. If you come back with me, I'll let you see him, Mama said. Promise? I think I believed her out of hope that she was seeing me as the person I was growing into, somehow magically becoming aware of my awareness. Yes, go get your stuff, and we'll go home. She threatened Dan one more time, and later told all our mutual acquaintances that he was a pedophile. I never heard from him again. When we got home, Mama tore through my backpack. Upon seeing the lingerie, she made me take a pregnancy test. You whore, if you're pregnant, she scowled, you're getting an abortion. Provocative words from a woman who didn't utter the word period to me my entire life. It was as if the smokescreen had lifted for a second, and she and I dropped the pretenses. She was talking to a 19-year-old, and we both knew it. I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror, something Mama told me I should never do on Good Friday. You will see Jesus dying on the cross if you look at yourself. Avoid the mirror on Good Friday, she used to say. She printed a picture of Dan from his Facebook page and then smashed my laptop and my track phone. She took a mason jar and shoved a picture of me and the picture of Dan into it with a cow's tongue. The tongue was to represent silencing me. She dropped a piece of toilet paper that had some of my period blood in the jar and then buried it in the backyard, not far from the shed. I observed her bizarre behavior like an outsider, detached and confused. She chanted over me something like, by God, Gypsy Rose will never find true love. Gypsy Rose will never find happiness. All I heard was, Gypsy will never be free. Her spell came true, because the next thing I knew, she made me go back into the house, handcuffed me to a dog leash, and connected the leash to her. Please, I'm sorry, I'll be good, Mama, was my refrain. She placed bells on the doors and reinforced the black garbage bags taped to every window in the house. I was trapped. If she fell asleep, I couldn't move without waking her up. I was at her mercy for everything. To go to the bathroom, for food, for everything. As punishment, she would not feed me every day, just a little bit of broth every other day. I would frequently get hunger pains. She was right beside me and would eat whatever she wanted. She kept a knife by her bedside table, which she said was for protection if I attempted to run away or do anything to leave. This went on for
Protection.
2 weeks.
Protection against you. I think Gypsy's the one who tied her mom up, but who knows?
This went on for 2 weeks.
2
Any
weeks.
love we had for each other was replaced by a mistrust that filled the house like a pressure cooker. The superficiality of our relationship had unraveled. Nobody came looking for either of us. Mama had made sure to establish strict boundaries that people knew not to cross. People knew well enough not to question her reclusive moods, mere cycles of a psyche that nobody, especially me, understood. Mama wouldn't talk to me. Even when it came time to administer my medicines, she gave me the silent treatment. We knew the drill, so words were not required. For 2 weeks,
Eternity.
she just kept me chained to the bedpost or to her body, and the extreme closeness to her skin made me feel thousands of miles apart from her. When I was little, I loved to feel her skin on mine. Nothing made me feel safe and loved like sleeping next to her, the warmth radiating from her body, blanketing me. Now, the warmth was replaced by electricity, fencing me in. How long will I be locked in here? Sooner or later, we'd need to go to the doctor or run an errand. She did leave me for short periods of time to go to a homeowners association meeting or to pick up something to eat. I'd be so afraid that a fire would suddenly start and the firefighters would find me burnt to a crisp, tied to the bed. I talked to nobody for 2 weeks. Nobody except for God. It had been a while since I prayed. I used to have formal prayer time at church every Sunday. When it came to churches, we bounced around a lot.
All right.
Like how
we'll
a young
skip.
person explores her identity, I prayed to God to all of that had now vanished. 9. Allons. Let's go. Maybe Mama really had magic powers, because in the months leading up to my second escape attempt in 2012, I knew by the way she increased her surveillance of me that she sensed I was up to something. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without asking permission. It took months to regain Mama's trust after she unleashed me from the bedpost. If I had been allowed to walk, it would have been on eggshells, as I did everything in my power not to upset her. I took my medicine and wore my oxygen at night. The ruse now an open flesh wound, but still ongoing. It was our normal, and I needed it back, so at least she'd take the bell off the back door. What kept me going was the hope of an escape, and that hope was crammed in a backpack hidden behind the couch. That and the painkillers. I don't know if it was my nervous energy, but she was tipped off and went on one of her maniacal searches of the house. She ransacked my bedroom, not exactly knowing what she was looking for, but likely thinking she'd know it when she saw it. I followed her in my wheelchair, crying, "What are you doing? What are you looking for? What did I do?" After she dumped out all of my drawers, she continued to the living room. I slickly maneuvered my wheelchair to block the couch cushion. I was a human compass arrow that led the pirate right to its booty. "Move out of the way," my mother said, her eyes darting. I knew I couldn't deny the evidence. "Can't you just let me leave? Let me go," I pleaded, looking past her to the kitchen table where her favorite talisman, an old-fashioned Chinese dagger, lay. "Not this again, Gypsy. I thought we moved past this." She sounded like I was begging her to let me go to the mall or even to date Dan, who wanted nothing to do with me after she told everyone that he was a pervert and a child molester. "I won't bother you, and you'll never see me again," I said, saying the reverse of what she wanted to hear. Rushing to the kitchen table, I swiped the dagger and grabbed a .22 caliber BB gun she'd picked up at Walmart. I thought if I aimed the gun at her, she'd back off. Out of fear, I pulled the trigger and offloaded 10 BBs at her, creating tiny slits in her flesh. "You shot me!" She backed her way into the bathroom. Double-fisted with weaponry, I followed her until I was wedged in the doorway.
How are you?
"Give me my bag. I want..."
How are you double fisted with weaponry and wheeling that wheelchair to aggressively scare the shit out of your mother? Ugh.
"I want to go." I came at her with the gun, now empty, and just held the dagger up while she sat on the toilet. We were at a standoff. Why can't I be like other kids? The surge of heat released from the top of my head. I could feel my arms quivering and my voice trembling. I didn't know frustration could feel this way, like you want to twist your own head off and throw it at someone.
Oh.
Why'd you shave my head? Why can't I be like Aaliyah? Why is my life this way? All the questions. I was mad about Dan, and about the dog leash, and about the cow's tongue. The loneliness, the shame, the period pull-up diapers, the pills that made me drowsy, the surgeries. I wanted a dad. I wanted a friend. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to listen to the Backstreet Boys. "I love you," she said, pressing her fingers against.
She want to listen to the Backstreet Boys, yet on Kale's podcast said that some of her best times were when she was blaring her boombox dancing around her bedroom. But, she wasn't allowed to walk. She was abused. She wasn't allowed to listen to the Backstreet Boys. Fuck.
"I love you," she said, pressing her fingers against her bleeding flesh wounds. "You are my heart, and I can't live without my heart." And then I asked the question that had been the source of so much frustration. "Why can't you let me go?" "Because I need you." I put the dagger down, but held on to the empty gun. "Please stay," she begged. I released all that pent-up anger. I felt relief, then remorse. I saw her flesh wounds, and I felt sorry and apologetic that it had escalated to this. I had forgotten that she said she hated me in the alley. All that echoed in my mind now was, "I love you." We sat on the bed together while she tended to her leg with peroxide and Band-Aids. I couldn't stop crying. The day went by with my quiet sobs. There was hardly anything said. She didn't hit me or tie me up again. I think she was afraid of me. I think she hadn't realized baby could be violent. Honey and baby were equals now. I was scared shitless of her, and she was scared shitless of me.
See, now to me, this was a pivotal point in the little pink house, what was going on inside of there. She scared the ever-loving shit out of her mother and basically tried to gain dominance in that house. In my opinion, that's what I think. She said honey and baby were speaking two different languages. It's because Gypsy was going to do whatever the hell she wanted, and her mom was supposed to sit back and just let her do it. That's what she thought anyways, in her delusional mind.
I was scared shitless of her, and she was scared shitless of me. Another dogfight. This time, nose to nose. The whole time, I never got up from the wheelchair. But from here on, Mama and I were speaking different languages. 10. Meeting Nick. I met Nick on ChristianDatingForFree.com.
Yet, Gypsy, during all of this, after you had this standoff with your mom and all of that, you were still conning with her. You were still taking trips from children The last Disney trip that Gypsy went on was the January before the murder, and the murder happened in June. And they spent allegedly like weeks down in Florida, having a great old time, meeting the cast of Harry Potter and all of that. While poor Dee Dee had to be taken by ambulance from one of the Disney parks because she had kidney stones, because Dee Dee was in very poor health. The moral of the story is Dee Dee did not have to die for Gypsy just to go have a boyfriend. You could have left Gypsy. You could have left that night with Nick with your little bus ticket that you didn't surprisingly have. That's weird. And never looked back. How would she find you in Wisconsin? You could have walked out the door. You didn't. You killed your mom for sausage. Period.
10.
And not in a diaper.
10. Meeting Nick. I met Nick on ChristianDatingForFree.com on October 12, 2012. Creating my profile allowed me the freedom to create something real and let go of my false persona. I dressed the way I thought I would look if I had grown up normal. The picture I posted was me wearing a brown wig, because my hair would have been brown if my mother hadn't shaved it off. I wore a prom dress that my mother had bought on clearance from JCPenney after prom season ended. Lying across my couch, I posed with a rose. I felt beautiful in my body. I liked having breasts and hips. Maybe I was on the way to finding myself, exploring myself. But that came to a screeching halt when I got matched with a boy named Nick, who winked at me. He must have liked my profile description.
Sorry, I'm on mute. No, she met the cast of Harry Potter. Look, I need to go and check the date of when she had her teeth pulled, because I don't think she had those pulled until she was at least 19 or 20, if I remember correctly. And those pics with her from the Harry Potter stuff, she has her no teeth. So I don't know. I don't know if it was the same trip or not, because Harry Potter is at Universal, but they could have gone to all the parks. I don't know. I had to go figure it out, which is hard because all Gypsy stories are, not matching. But we've all seen the picture of Gypsy at Disney with that red wig on. Still conning, eating those royal mashed potatoes.
He must have liked my profile description, which said basically, I'm a very happy, bubbly girl interested in sci-fi and fantasy. I am a virgin, and I'm waiting to commit myself to my husband. Innocently, I added my love for animals and being outside, even though my time in nature was contained to brief visits to my backyard, marveling at butterflies and slugs. When I was surfing the internet, I was a butterfly. Nick said he wanted this butterfly to be his girlfriend, and it was the first time I experienced the feeling of pride. Someone wanted me for me. I wanted love and attention that had nothing to do with pity. So I made the videos he requested and directed. The more he praised me for a good job after sucking on a dildo he had ordered from Japan,
Oh
the more I
my.
believed he loved me. Of course, when I would do the videos wrong, for example, forgetting to call him master or not being a dirty enough girl, he'd threaten to pull that love away.
No, Gypsy.
I was familiar with
No, Gypsy. That was you. That was you. You were the one playing the cat and mouse game, the carrot and stick game. That was you, Gypsy. This part about Nick really pisses me off because it's absolutely like she has turned the story. Like, Nick was writing all these scripts. Well, where's your proof? I want to see proof that Nick ever wrote you a script. I don't believe that at all. Didn't you say your mom was making scripts and now Nick's making the scripts? I don't believe you. at all, especially when it comes to Nick and Dee Dee.
I was familiar with the carrot and stick game.
Yeah.
My mother loved me when I was sick and took her love back when I wasn't.
Bullshit.
In order to be
That's
accepted and loved,
bullshit.
I needed to meet the expectations of others. Nick exposed me to a lot of sexually perverse things and ideas, but 10 years later, knowing now what I know about sex, he taught me all wrong. From what I've read, he didn't have an accurate idea of BDSM, bondage, discipline, submission, and masochism. And he made it up as we went along. The
No, you
BDSM stuff
did.
made me cringe,
That was you, Gypsy.
and after a while, it demoralized me. I
That
felt
was you.
uncomfortable in the role of his submissive
Liar.
and winced when he verbally degraded me.
Liar.
But Nick would balance that out with an intricate fantasy world containing realms of good versus evil, which reminded me of the sci-fi conventions and the stories and movies I enjoyed and needed to believe in. I was vulnerable to Nick, the only adult in my life who knew that I could walk. I was vulnerable to Nick, the only adult in my life who knew that I could walk, that I didn't have labored breathing at bedtime, that I wasn't mentally disabled, that the scars on both sides of my neck were from unnecessary surgery, that I'd be under the knife again soon enough.
Liar.
I took off one mask of Gypsy Rose, replacing it with another mask of Gypsy Rose. Telling the truth felt like releasing a butterfly from a net, only for it to fly right into the mud. Telling the truth felt like releasing a butterfly from a net, only for it to fly right into the mud. We both lived in a fantasy world, where the innocence of imagination dies and resurrects into a world ruled by the improbable and the impossible. Nick lived in the realm of the improbable. In our elaborate conversations, he'd command his minions and gargoyles to swoop me out of my
Gargoyles.
princess room and into a dimension in which I was queen, his queen. Nick's storytelling captivated me. Precise and colorful, detailed and well crafted. If he hadn't included the perversion and the savage and depraved violence, he could have turned his stories into novels and sold millions of copies. I could feel the grooves of the stone walls of his castle and the smoothness of the horns of the Seraptors, circling the labyrinth. Proper names for his creations rolled off his tongue, suspending my belief in glorious ways. Night after night, I drank from his chalice of escape. Nick's realm held mystical beasts, evil spells, and poison potions. The upside-down version of my reality.
Okay, I do not buy for 1 second that Nick was the one coming up with potions and all these fantasies that sound just like your Disney and Harry Potter fantasies, Gypsy. You're so full of shit. And I hope that Nick hears all of this part of the book. I hope NPG hears all of this part of the book, because now is the time to out this bitch for being a liar and not only slandering her mother, but slandering Nick after she's already, got him in prison for the rest of his life. Ugh. She makes me sick. Yeah, there's zero proof of that. Not one shit. You would think, Gypsy, if you had such damning evidence, you would have went to trial and presented all this evidence of how Nick had you in a fantasy world and you just didn't know any better. Not mentally disabled. That's deliberate, Gypsy. You were using a bottle and wearing diapers and couldn't remember your age from year to year. Allegedly. Couldn't remember. I think she did. Possibly.
Nick's realm held mystical beasts, evil spells, and poison potions. The upside-down version of my reality. Like Earth's continents, Nick's fantasy world contained several lands separated by serpent-filled seas. Nick's evil twin brother lived in one realm, and he vowed to build a portal to the human world, where he would murder those in Nick's wake, in particular, me. Thank goodness for his medallion, his prized possession, which magically transported Nick out of this brother's realm and into his secret realm of safety, which was also Nick's kingdom.
Hold on.
Here, he was
Hold on. Well, there's nothing wrong with fantasizing, and it's not bad. He was probably enjoying it for her, but she corrupts it all. Yeah, but I don't think he was the one coming up with all of these fantasies. He probably enjoyed them, and like you said, there's nothing wrong with it unless you're Gypsy Rose and you're using it as a manipulation tool. Yeah, the realm, there's like a twin brother, blah. You'll see. She needs a lawyer. Or he does. He needs a lawyer? Yeah, I think the roles were definitely reversed. Absolutely. You don't think he was either? Yeah. No way. Sorry, not buying it. He did not come up with all this. Gypsy did, and Nick was just playing along with her fantasy world.
Here, he was king and lived amongst 12 alien soulmates of different species. I was the only human soulmate, his queen, but not without a duty. And if I didn't fulfill it, I'd be cast out forever, losing the one king who would ever love me. This kingdom is where Victor, the 3,000-year-old vampire, lived. It was also home to the Dark One. These villains did not drink blood. They thirsted, however, for rape and murder of women, and not always in that order. Nick also had such a thirst for necrophilia, as he shared his fantasy of first murdering and then raping his ex-girlfriend.
Pause. Okay, we're going to pause it right there. I've got the Greene County files up, and I'm going to read something. I've got to get to it, though. So give me just a moment to find which one it is. Actually, I have it in a video. Why don't I just play that? Give me a second. Is it on my new one? I don't think so. Give me just a moment. It's in the supplemental report. All right, hold on. Where's that damn supplemental report? Where is it? Maybe it's on my new channel. Yeah, it is. Here it is. All right. So she said Nick was into necrophilia. Don't believe that. Prove it. Where's the proof? We just go without proof now.
She was still in Wisconsin when she called me. Hey, my sweetie.
Hi. Kristen?
Yes, baby.
Hi. Oh my God, it's so good to hear your voice.
At that time, she still wasn't trusting really anyone. She was still not telling Mike everything.
I can understand. It's a complicated situation, but what they say on the news is not true.
Then we went in the courtroom. And that's when they showed all the text messaging. And when they said they were presenting that, she turned around and looked at us with fear in her eyes. I guess she didn't think that they were going to pull all of those messages up.
Video from Gypsy's cell phone videoing herself to Nicholas. Report. I was notified by Springfield Police Department Computer Forensic Analysis Michael Costello in reference to audio/video footage he located involving Gypsy Blanchard. The video/audio was 15 minutes long. The following is a summation of the recorded audio/video of Gypsy Blanchard. It is not intended as a transcript or exact text of the recording. In this audio/video, Gypsy appears in what looks like a black and color jacket with a red wig, addressing it to Nicholas from Gypsy, calling him, quote, "Sir." She states, quote, "Hi, sir. This is Ruby, and I'm making this video as an introduction video." Gypsy admits Ruby is the most evil side of her. Gypsy stated in this audio/video, she likes to get in trouble, and she is not sorry when she gets caught. Gypsy stated her, quote, "caring" was broken, and she was not scared of law enforcement, but she would be scared of Nicholas's evil side. Gypsy stated she would do anything with Nicholas to include murder, rape, and assault. Gypsy tells Nicholas if at any time a girl tried to become his girlfriend, she would kill them with pleasure, and there would be lots of gore and blood. Gypsy stated if a girl was trying to get with Nicholas for sex, she might allow it. But if the girl tried to get with him as a girlfriend, she would kill her and they would kill her together. Gypsy goes on to say how if it were family members murdered, she would not be so brutal, and she would have to step back and let him handle it. Gypsy stated she would allow Nicholas to grape her anytime he wanted to, but not physically assault her, but she was okay with, quote, "rough sex" and grape sex. Gypsy talked about the romantic side of Ruby and how Ruby was not touchy-feely. However, Kitty, Candy, and Bella were the romantic sides of her. Gypsy stated in this audio/video she was very good at stealing and talked about how they could steal bigger things together. Gypsy talked about how she was, quote, "very good at planning things." Gypsy said she liked to cause, quote, "mischief and mayhem." But Nicholas would have to put her in charge of all the planning. Gypsy stated she comes up with, quote, "very, very bad ideas." And then she referred to her bad ideas as robbery, grape, vandalism, and stealing vehicles. The remainder of the video, Gypsy talked about her and Nicholas bonding when they could finally be together. Other than the above-mentioned statements, there was nothing else of evidentiary value on the audio/video. Okay, so who's the one who was having brutal fantasies of grape? What up, Cowboy Bear? How you doing, buddy? Happy holidays. I have a song for you, Cowboy Bear. I'm going to play it later, okay? Don't leave. All right. Let's go back to some more of this book. But yeah, I don't think Nick was the one with you were here making videos about grape, how you liked grape schmecks. You nasty.
Nick also had such a thirst for necrophilia, as he shared his fantasy of
Bubbles.
first murdering and then raping his ex-girlfriend, after which
God.
he would meticulously carve her skin with a knife to brand her with labels like whore, bitch, and slut. In Nick's realm, king and queen did not sit side by side, but as dominant and submissive, the queen being ruled over in all aspects. And it wasn't just sex. I'd only speak when told I could speak. I'd be chastised for laughing at something funny because I hadn't yet been permitted. I could not make advances or ask questions without a code word. I role-played with 4 different personas. Demona, who was a half-werewolf, half-human girl. Kitty, who was childlike. Candy embraced more of my slutty side. And Ruby was the evil one. Our laptop cameras became a portal between his realm and mine, transporting us both into our respective roles, me dressing in costume, taking orders, speaking in the language of the realm, and addressing Nick as master. He would protect me from anyone, yes, even his evil twin brother, but only if I was a good girl and did as I was told. You have to understand, I thought my having a boyfriend would bring me one step closer to being a real teenager, like my neighbor Aaliyah and her friends.
All right, we're going to have a little intermission for Cowboy Bear. Okay, I'm going to play his song. Are you still here, Cowboy Bear? Because this is dedicated to you, my friend. This is for you, Cowboy Bear.
You know I love that sound.
I love it. That's your song, Cowboy Bear. Bear and Ken, that's right. He's bouncing off my booty cheeks. Oh, Bear. Cowboy Bear, you're great. We love you. All right, let's get back to the real bussy over here.
I thought that having a Facebook profile and liking and sharing things was going to ultimately initiate me into a culture club filled with peers and people watching, and an actual community of which I was an active participant. If I couldn't physically reach out and touch that world, I'd bring that world closer to touch me.
A cub.
When Nick ordered me to touch myself, I thought it was his way of teleporting his touch to me. My hand a mere lever he was controlling with a joystick from his dark kingdom in a faraway land called Wisconsin. Before I met Nick, my profile picture was of me in a yellow ruffled sundress, a floppy hat, holding a teddy bear. Where my mother defeminized me by putting a razor on my vagina, Nick told me I'd be a woman if he carved me up with a knife. Where my mother humiliated my femininity by binding my breasts, Nick ordered me to humiliate myself by slathering them with barbecue sauce or peanut butter. I was a mechanical doll, taking instructions and acting them out without pleasure or pain. I just was. Because I believed I was learning what love is. It is someone caring enough about you to dominate you.
Sorry, I'm not
It is
laughing at
caring
the
enough.
Cowboy Bear. I just saw what you sent me on TikTok. Can I play it? We gotta play it real quick. I love Cowboy Bear. I think he's great. Oh, I'm about brain dead from this book. I need to laugh. All right, let's pull this up real quick. All right, let's see. Do 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 do. Here we go.
My man wouldn't touch you, not threatened by you. My man wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole.
10 inches, Gypsy, really? It's more like 3 inches. I should know. More like 3 inches.
Oh, Cowboy Bear. Oh, you make me laugh. Oh my God. All right. Oh, he's great. He's great, guys. All right, here we go. Here we go.
It is someone caring enough about you to dominate you. It is caring enough about someone to fulfill all his commands. The validation I'd received from Nick kept me compliant and submissive. In order to be accepted, I needed to keep him happy. I had no other suitors, no other reference point. I was alone and wanted my loneliness to be cured, to treat it because it was the one true disease I actually had. Here is a guy into all this odd stuff, okay? But how bad could it be? Maybe guys his age explore sexually in this way. How would I know or not know? I just wanted to be accepted, and I thought I'd do anything he wanted to stay in his life, even if that life was in a world of his own making. I had already lived in a world of someone else's making. At least in his, I was a woman. I'm so proud of you, he said, after I sent him my initiation video, which formally defined our roles in the BDSM relationship. At the end of the video, I just wanted to be accepted, and I thought I'd do anything he wanted to stay in his life, even if that life was in a world of his own making. I had already lived in a world of someone else's making. At least in his, I was a woman. I'm so proud of you, he said, after I sent him my initiation video, which formally defined our roles in the BDSM relationship.
Okay, we just heard her introduction video to him. Okay, Gypsy, do you realize that's in the case file? That you told him that you were into grape and robbery and schmurder? That was all you, Gypsy. Not him. That was you.
I'm so proud of you, he said, after I sent him my initiation video, which formally defined our roles in the BDSM relationship. At the end of the video, I had to say, please consider me as your submissive.
Why?
As elaborate as the details of his fantasy realms, Nick would send me scripts to act out, direct my dialogue and costuming, and demand unusual sexual behaviors with phallic objects, while contorting my body so my female parts were exposed like parts under the hood of a rusty old car.
Now, where the hell was your abusive mother when you had your cuckoo all up in the video camera, the screen? Ugh, Gypsy. Like what did she say? Like a car parts under an old rusty. Oh, I cannot. Oops. What is it doing?
As elaborate as the details of his fantasy realms, Nick would send me scripts to act out, direct my dialogue and costuming, and demand unusual sexual behaviors with phallic objects, while contorting my body so my female parts were exposed like parts under the hood of a rusty old car. The acting felt natural. During the day, I was a hairless, prepubescent, paraplegic child, squeaky-voiced, running through scripts that prompted doctors to poke and prod me. At night, I was running through scripts, begging for the mercy of my master as I poked and prodded myself. Day or night, mother or master, my identity was created in the image of a two-headed monster, a monster whose fetish was to feast on my dignity.
Oh my God.
Nick pulled BDSM through like a thread in his fantasy world stories.
Sure.
There was no separation between the realms and our dominant and submissive acts. Whatever we would be doing or saying as dominant and submissive was all in service of his kingdom or the realm, where the Dark One, where Victor, and where Nick's evil twin were all out to get me, to pillage me and make me scream in horror, and degrade my womanhood with each painful thrust of their daggers.
Oh my God.
He wanted me to denigrate myself with a 9-inch dildo he had mail-ordered from Japan. I remember him ordering me to stalk the mailman, because something was coming for me. I did intercept the unmarked package, and the thought of shoving the object up me made me queasy. Bad girl that I was, I told my master no when he told me to put it in all 3 of my holes. So I just sucked on it for him, taking out my dentures to try to ease the gag reflex so I wouldn't vomit in my mouth. He called me names, whore, cunt, bitch. All the while, my tongue painted the plastic, up and down all around. The feeling of confused
Okay.
shame was familiar as I heard my grandfather's voice in my head.
What?
Minutes lasted between sounds of my swallowing and smacking, and
Did she just say as she heard her grandpa's voice in her head? Did she really just say that? Yeah, sorry guys. It only gets worse. Ugh. Blue Sunshine said, "What a time to just enter the live." I'm sorry. I'm telling you, this Gypsy, you owe all of us a therapy session. I need you to pay for all of our therapy after having to listen to this raunchy book that you wrote for your daughter. I will let you choke me and call me. Oh my goodness. Squeeze your left. Thank you, Jessie Jean. Or Jean. Is it Jessie Jean? Am I saying that wrong? Practice makes perfect. You know she still pops that denture out. Come on.
minutes lasted between sounds of my swallowing and smacking until finally Nick ordered me to stop. I overlooked the malevolence and the kink in order to build something that wasn't there. A life with Nick. If I were free, what would it be like to live together? I'd ask him, unaware that he was engaged in video relationships with at least 3 other women. It wasn't just about having Nick control my life. I wanted to imagine our romance coming to life in my realm, the real world. What would it be like to be king and queen? I waited for Nick's answers with bated breath. But his answers were all about being his sex slave and fighting the forces of the Dark One. I agreed to the terms of Nick's dominance over me. In his mind, this meant we were married. I own you now would become his refrain. He said one day soon he'd take my virginity from me, because that's what dominants do. I invested a lot of time and energy in capturing his acceptance and what I thought was love, while he captured my mind.
Oh,
He would say
bullshit.
things like, "I'm so proud of you," if I rubbed the right amount of barbecue sauce or ketchup on my naked body in the bathtub.
Did you hear
You have
that?
so much
In case you missed it.
You have so much potential, Gypsy. I own you now would become his refrain. He said one day soon he'd take my virginity from me, because that's what dominants do. I invested a lot of time and energy in capturing his acceptance and what I thought was love, while he captured my mind. He would say things like, "I'm so proud of you," if I rubbed the right amount of barbecue sauce or ketchup on my naked body in the bathtub. You have so much potential, Gypsy, he'd say. If I was good at humiliating myself for his pleasure, he'd tell me he loved me and he believed in me. Other times, he'd say I needed bigger boobs, or I wasn't dirty or nasty enough. Nick introduced the violence, the murders, the blood, the carvings, the brutal rape fantasies, and I was
No.
so afraid of losing his validation.
I don't believe
I
that.
ignored his ex-girlfriend's Facebook message warning that he was controlling and not all there. What girl wants to see her ex happy? Nick rationalized when I told him his ex messaged me. It wasn't until he told me that upon our daughter's 13th birthday, he would take her virginity that I thought he crossed the creepy line. I broke up with him, but like a good submissive, I accepted his apologies and returned to our status quo, the same way I accepted my mother's non-apologies.
Yeah, we know who the dominant here is. It's not Ken, and it surely was not Nick. We know Gypsy's. Ugh, you're so gross, Gypsy.
I broke up with him, but like a good submissive, I accepted his apologies and returned to our status quo, the same way I accepted my mother's non-apologies. The end game was to live a life together and to finally be together. And the ideas of how I wanted to be treated and how he wanted to treat me were different. We'd argue a lot about this. Why can't we just have a normal life? I'd say, my begging indirectly feeding into his dominance. Like the people on Malcolm in the Middle, why can't we have that family? He didn't want an American sitcom kind of life. I'm not that kind of person, he responded, firm on the fact that he wouldn't change, that people don't change. You must not really love me if you want to change me. We would go back and forth on the matter of shifting our relationship from dominant and submissive to an American sitcom kind of life.
What?
We'd threaten breaking up with each other, which triggered an anxiety of being abandoned, which is something I still grapple with today. Our fights would shine a light on my feelings of unworthiness, which only made me sabotage the relationship even more. He'd do the same, and he'd continue his threats to leave me, and the cycle would continue. Finally, I'd beg him not to leave me and cave in to do whatever he wanted me to do. 11. The movie theater. Nick and I wanted to be together, and we both wanted me out of my mother's grip. He could protect me by taking me away, by moving me to Wisconsin with him, and by sharing a life with me. So we talked about the options we could exercise to make that happen, as we tried to manipulate the mangled parts of my life into a more pleasant shape. We didn't have a master plan. It wasn't anything like that, like planning a jewelry heist with several plots or run-throughs. I had been a hopeless, sheltered girl who had found hope in Nick and then lost that hope all over again. But my mother's physical abuse reinforced the electric fence that she had activated after the Dan debacle. It wasn't one discussion like, okay, how do we get rid of your mom? They were gradual conversations that were baked into an elaborate fantasy world Nick created. He shared with me that he got sexually aroused when he fantasized about murdering and raping his ex-girlfriend, but our plot was more reminiscent of a soap opera. I got it, I said to Nick, brainstorming an idea for one option. You can come visit me in the middle of the night, and when Mama's asleep, I'll wheel down the wheelchair ramp, and you and I will sneak to the backyard. We'll have sex and you will get me pregnant, and then Mama will have to let me be with you. As the father, she will have to accept you. I shoplifted prenatal pills and a pregnancy test and posted it on my secret Facebook page, where I was friends with Nick's mom. She called Nick.
What?
What is Gypsy doing?
Why would you do that? Why would you do that? What? Oh my God. This woman should not have children. I'm sorry. I said it. She should not have children. It's the same shit you did with this baby. Posted prenatal vitamins and fucking pregnancy tests. It's just weird. I can't. This woman should not be a mother.
She called Nick. What is Gypsy doing? Okay, that's not a good plan. Nick
Hey,
said his mother was
Lanky.
not pleased and warned him not to get me pregnant. It is eerie how this story is almost exactly the same as when Grandma Sharon warned my dad against Mama trying to get pregnant because of a library book. I'm not sure why I thought Mama would be on board with a pregnancy. When she accused me of having sex with Dan, even though I swore up and down nothing happened, she said she'd make me have an abortion if I was pregnant. Nick was right. Pregnancy wouldn't work. I really had to dig in to try to understand what my mother's big issue about me dating was. Her control and abuse had moved outside the realm of my health and was more preoccupied with my social interactions, especially romantic ones, which my maturing body and mind naturally craved. Was she afraid of being abandoned by me? That I'd meet a man make a family, and forget all about her? Was it that she would be jealous or feel left out of?
Hold on. The Netflix 6-part series, though, will be fire. They have no rights to the documentary. What are you talking about? What documentary? What 6-part series on Netflix, Cowboy Bear? What are you talking about? Tell me more. Oh, Lanky, this book, man. It's bad. It's real bad.
Was it that she would be jealous or feel left out of my life in some way? My thought process was so desperate. I thought if I could figure out a way to placate her emotional needs, there would be a way for me to create a win-win situation, one in which I was happy with Nick and my mother could feel like an active participant in my life. I continued brainstorming with Nick, coming up with what I thought was the best idea yet. What if we accidentally meet up and pretend we just met, and Mama would see that we really like each other and let us date? Like pretend we're strangers who bump into each other, like love at first sight, he asked. Exactly. Mama and I go to the movies a lot. So maybe you can come down when we see the new Cinderella movie, and then you are just there in the lobby and we accidentally meet, like bump into each other. This meet cute idea made sense to me at the time. Mama wanted to be a part of my life and wouldn't let go. So what if I baked her into the origin story? The first time Nick and I met, Mama was there. I would say at our wedding, with Mama by my side, happily taking credit for my happiness. I was delusional to think Mama would find peace in knowing she was a part of us and not feel alienated or threatened in any way. But I figured our love story would be her story as much as it was mine. She could own it. We shared everything after all, so this had to be the answer. I had to share my experience with Nick with her to appeal to her ego, so she wouldn't feel excluded or worse, replaced. At least that's what I thought she needed in order to let me date him. I was trying to get her approval in my life in any way, just so Nick could somehow be integrated. It was when she felt excluded or she felt I was leaving her that she'd unleash her wrath. Nick made an addition to our meet cute plan. I will take your virginity at the movie theater, he said, with lust in his voice, and you will be mine forever. I will own you. At this point, I wanted to give him my virginity, mostly because I wanted that part over with. I thought this was my one and only chance, especially as I was finally getting to be with Nick in real life. This is something we have to do now, I thought. We promised we would figure out a way for us to meet in the bathroom during the movie. So on March 12, 2015, I dressed up in a Cinderella costume dress and tiara to accompany Mama to the live-action version of Cinderella. We were regulars at the movie theater in Springfield, and we were greeted by the staff with the usual enthusiasm they'd shown for us ever since we moved to town. It was like any other day, except I had cramps from being on my period. I double dosed on Oxy to help with the cramps. My diaper felt particularly sticky against the flammable polyester material of my princess dress. The damn diaper was riding up on me, and I felt like I already needed to change. I looked around eagerly, wishing I didn't feel so
Mariska?
gross, because my Prince Charming was
Good to see
literally
you,
going to
Mariska.
appear as planned any second. I smiled and wheeled slowly through the lobby. In seconds, my life would change forever. And as promised, Nick appeared. He was a terrible actor, as he awkwardly came over and said hello to me. Looking back now, I can see how transparent the whole scene was, and my mother didn't buy any of it. I wanted to sit with Nick, and she demanded I stay with her. She thought he was creepy. Why is this single adult man at a kids' movie? She had already figured Dan to be a pedophile, and considering both of our histories with Claude, I didn't think Mama's concern about Nick was far off. I told her I was going to the bathroom. She let me go alone. Looking back now, I don't know why she did. Was it a trap? Did she want to give me enough rope to hang myself? If she didn't let me go, she wouldn't have been able to punish me. Or did she really let her guard down? After Dan, I didn't think that was possible. Prepared to be
Bethany.
transformed by my first sexual encounter, I wheeled into the men's bathroom and Nick fell in line, following me into the wheelchair accessible stall. If my mother came looking for me, I knew she wouldn't go into the men's bathroom. It was exciting. After almost a year of a virtual relationship, to be in the flesh together felt like a dream. We kissed awkwardly, not too slow, because we knew we had to be quick. As his hands glided down and underneath my princess dress, I winced when his hand froze. I sensed his brain trying to register what his fingers were feeling as he inched them down the front of my not sexy underwear, but a diaper.
Hi, Ash274. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, now you can really. I want you to tell me what you think about old Jip Jip after hearing this book, okay? I know you're not going to go watch the. But this, yeah, this is bad. You should really hear the whole thing, but I know you're not going to go listen to it. She's still not a victim of Munchausen by proxy. The book just proves that even more. She's a dirty, dirty little hoe bag. All right, let's see if I'm going to rewind it a little bit. Sorry.
After almost a year of a virtual relationship, to be in the flesh together felt like a dream. We kissed awkwardly, not too slow, because we knew we had to be quick. As his hands glided down and underneath my princess dress, I winced when his hand froze. I sensed his brain trying to register what his fingers were feeling as he inched them down the front of my not sexy underwear, but a diaper.
I didn't buy
And the
any.
moisture he felt was not due to the heat he was producing inside me, but blood. Nick went limp. He saw my diaper and the blood, and without the need for my explanation, he put two and two together. I tried to touch him to help him regain an erection, but there was nothing I could do to help him unseat a grown woman bleeding into a diaper. In the name of his owning me, Nick pressed his softness against me and tried to stuff himself inside me, unable to penetrate me with his power. I wheeled out of the stall, technically still a virgin. Nick said we were married now, because what we just did, according to him, was sex. The credits began to roll when Mama found me where I had been seated with Nick, and she looked blankly at me. Nick tried to make small talk, but she just walked out of the movie theater and then out of the front doors of the IMAX building. I better go, I said to Nick, a nervousness rising within me. He escorted me to the front doors and told me he'd call me when he got on the bus back to Wisconsin. I had bought him the bus ticket since he didn't work. He told me he used to have a job being the guy who held up the Little Caesars sign on the major roads, but that didn't work out. He spent a lot of time hanging out in the McDonald's that was within walking distance of his house, since they had Wi-Fi there. Nick had been arrested for disorderly conduct for masturbating to porn at the McDonald's. That was something that came out in the discovery process after our arrests. Mama was not a fast walker, but on this day, she was way ahead of me already in the parking lot. I was spinning the wheels of my chair, calling her name, "Mama, wait for me." She just proceeded to get in the van, pretending not to hear me, dismissing me completely. I knew she wouldn't leave me there. It would be too visible, too high profile. I met her at the van, transferred myself into the passenger seat, while without words,
Jay.
she folded up my chair, opened the back van door, and took some of her anger out on the wheelchair, flinging it inside. "What were you thinking?" she said. I could tell she was seething because she was sighing to catch air, her breathing erratic and heavy. "Are you trying to kill me? You know I'm not well, Gypsy. I swear if I die, it'll be you who killed me.
I believe
You already tried to shoot me once."
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. I believe your mom did say that. She was scared to shit at you. She's scared as shit of you. No, Ash, you better hush your mouth.
You already tried to shoot me once. All I could think of as she spoke so hatefully to me was that I wanted to get high. I didn't purposely try to kill you with BBs, Mama. I was trying to leave. Any hope I had of being with Nick had been sucked out of me, along with my naivete. No plans could save me now. I didn't know what my fate would be with Nick being far away again and Mama more pissed off than ever. I closed my eyes and tried to calm myself with the thought of crushing Mama's oxy and injecting the pain-killing powder right into my feeding tube. Instant relief.
It's a good question, Red Sauce. I don't know. And the even more disturbing part is that she wrote this for her daughter to read one day. Though she said that. Oops.
Instant relief. When we got back home, she took the handles of my wheelchair, signaling that she would be pushing me to my destination. Her cadence was pointed and determined as she
Rude.
marched me not up the wheelchair ramp to the front door, but around the house and into the backyard. Mama, what's going on? I'm sorry. Mama, I'm sorry. I'll be good. Save it, she said. You're a liar and you take me for a fool. You think you're just going to run off with this boy now? Whore. Fool me once. She walked us past the bald patch in the grass, where the cursed mason jar was buried, and brought me to the shed. When we were first given the Habitat for Humanity house, the program workers found out that I wished for a playhouse.
Okay, now I just want to say that when Cats in Crochet, her story has always been that was supposed to be a playhouse for Gypsy. So, I really do believe Kat's story. I do. I know that she's had a little inconsistencies, but wait, where did my comments go? That was weird. Anyhow, but yeah, she did say that about the playhouse.
When we were first given the Habitat for Humanity house, the program workers found out that I wished for a playhouse. So they painted the shed the same pink color as our house and made it look like a miniature version. A playhouse just for Gypsy. Except I never went out there. For one thing, my mother never let me outside. There was never a moment during the day when Mama would ever say, "Let's get outside and get some sun on our face." Never. Second, I'm afraid of bugs, and bugs were everywhere in the shed. The shed might have looked like a mini house, but the inside floor was made of dirt, where slugs and fire ants and worse, spiders lived.
Okay,
As dust
hold on.
blanketed the sky, the temperature.
I do not know why she says that about the floor of the shed, because the shed did have a floor. I don't know if it was concrete or wood, but it definitely had a damn floor. This is just more of her imagination. Listen to this part.
As dust blanketed the sky, the temperature dipped, and I was officially freaked out. I asked her cautiously, as if walking through a minefield, "Mama, what are we doing?" "You can't be trusted," she said, her mind well made up. "Get in." "No, stop, Mama." My sobs failed to penetrate, bring her back to this world.
Carpet. It had carpet.
She was somewhere else now, riding a wave of hatred and jealousy, fear and recklessness.
Alrighty then.
She pushed me into the shed. "Get out of the chair," she said. Even alone in the dark out back, where nobody would think to look for us, I transferred myself out of the chair
Yes,
as if my
Lanky.
legs really didn't work.
That's a good catch. Yeah, she was marveling at bugs earlier, and now she despises them.
I placed myself on the ground among the big black garbage bags full of shoplifted garments, tears spilling onto the dirt.
Dirt.
My stomach turns over when I play this moment back in my mind. I could have used the chair to bust right past her. She clearly didn't want to leave me alone in the shed with my wheelchair, in case I'd use it as a tool to break down the door. but I wonder if I would have done that at all. I look back at that little girl whose mind had been bent by a lifetime of indoctrination and see she wouldn't have fought back. Or maybe I was just too close to the cursed mason jar, where the spell still held power. Gypsy will never be happy. She will never be free. She took an about face and walked out, slamming the shed door behind her. Mama, don't just leave me in here. Mama, the spiders! The angry clanks of the padlock were her only response. I was hungry, thirsty, freezing, scared, and the most desperate I had ever felt. And her pills were all the way back in the house. Did Nick get on the bus okay? Is he asleep on the back of a comfortable coach bus, his head held up by the window? Was he a window or an aisle person? There was so much I didn't know about him that now I'd never find out. I tried to focus on Nick to keep my fear of the spiders at bay. If I fall asleep, will they crawl in my ears and up my nose? Without my CPAP machine, will they creep into my mouth and lay eggs? I had to stay awake and keep watch for Mama. Maybe she would miss me, alone in her bed, and come and get me. I tried to send her telepathic messages. She always said we were connected in a special way. Plus, she had powers. Come get me. Come get me. Come get me! After ripping open one of the bags to find warm clothes, I finally fell asleep. My telepathic messages worked, but not in the way I expected. I had a dream in which Thad and Christy were cooking in the kitchen of the little blue house.
Okay, this dream to me is weird as fuck.
I had a dream in which Thad and Christy were cooking in the kitchen of the little blue house. I was my age, but my body was childlike. I sat on the floor teasing my two cats with feather toys, but they turned into my brother and sister, Dylan and Mia. I was so happy, but so mad at them at the same time. Happy because I was no longer alone, but mad because my dad had left me for them.
And I think you still feel that way today, Gypsy. I think you still feel that way, especially towards Mia. I worry for you, Mia. I truly do.
Happy because I was no longer alone, but mad because my dad had left me for them. Then suddenly, I'm at a police station with these really nice people wrapping blankets around me. Christy and Dad were there talking to a detective. Christy was crying, even though she looked happy. The detective and the nice people with blankets met with all of us in the room. They were introducing me to Christy and Dad because in my dream, I didn't know them, even though I did. It's hard to explain. Gypsy, do you know where you are? The detective asked. Where's Mama? I asked, scanning the room of adults who looked at me like I was about to break. They proceeded to tell me that Christy and Dad had been looking for me all my life. Gypsy, we have to let you know that Dee Dee is not your real mother. Christy is. The police station transformed into an open park. Now I was skipping around Disney World. My long curly hair danced around my waist as I held the hands of Christy and Dad, flanked by them. I felt a strong sense of relief that my life was not what it seemed, and finally someone did come get me.
Oh my God.
When I woke up, I was disoriented.
But guess what, Gypsy? In reality, your dad did nothing. Your dad did nothing. And neither did Christy.
I looked around the shed and could see some sunlight peeking in. My fingers and toes were numb, and I must have slept hard because I had drool on my cheek. She had left me there all night, overnight, alone and scared. Depression drenched me as I reconciled the fact that my dream wasn't real, that the pure joy I felt being reunited with my real family was as fictional as the life I had lived with my mother. Mama didn't come to let me out of the shed until about noon. She wasn't an early riser by habit, so why would she make a concession on this day? When she opened up the door, her body language exuded the power of a victor over her spoils. I thought that upon seeing her, I'd be more afraid, or angry, or despondent. But I felt nothing, like all of my emotions had been zapped out of me in a sterile shock treatment room. Back to the house, she said, her hands gripping the portable wheelchair. I transferred myself from the ground to the chair, and she wheeled me back to the house. We had an appointment with the ENT we couldn't miss. 12. Intermission. Recovering my medical records.
Okay, hold on.
Disclosure will bring.
I'm not going to get into her medical records because it'll piss me off. Because she doesn't know what she's looking at, obviously. All right, let's see. Let's get to the murder.
14. June 9th, 2015. It's my last Saturday morning in prison. The passing of time has stopped as suddenly as a summer rain in the South. My morning ritual, drinking instant coffee and breaking off the corner of a Pop-Tart, will soon be a memory. As of next Saturday, I'll be in a home, my home, learning how to brew real coffee in a percolator. I have so much to learn about, even the most basic things, like how do I like my eggs? Or do I even like eggs? Which side of the bed do I prefer? Will I pick the side I slept on with my mother? Or will I do the opposite? Which is to say, either decision will be equally governed by her. What television shows will I like? Which series will I binge watch first? Will I go for a health physical? How will I find the right therapist? Will making love freak me out? Next Saturday, I will be on the incline of a learning curve.
No, Mike Stanfield had the medical records. They don't have the medical records before about the year 2000, I think.
Next Saturday, I will be on the incline of a learning curve with slopes that I know I'll be meeting the press. As part of my life penance, when I thought of her, it was as an obstacle. You are the obstacle. What do I have to do to get past you? I let Nick into my house to remove my obstacle. Mama slept with her baby pillow, the one she had since she was literally an infant. My mother carried that baby pillow in a larger pillowcase, like a potato dropped in a sack, as a way to preserve the timeline of her existence, trapped in a yellow stain residue of spit up, tears, sweat, and soon enough, blood. And then she put that into another pillowcase, and into another, forming what looked like lumpy mashed potatoes. The night my mother was going to die, I remember slowing the evening down. I think people would describe.
Okay, I just want to point this out again. If anybody doesn't know this, Dee Dee's mother, Emma, Gypsy's grandma, that she called Momsy Emma, passed away on June the 9th. I don't remember the year. In the 90s, late 90s maybe, I don't know. And Dee Dee just so happens to be murdered on the exact anniversary of her mother's death. Her mother, who Dee Dee loved so much. So, I just wonder to myself, like, what was going through Dee Dee's mind on this day? She was probably thinking of her mother. And, oh God, Gypsy, you're just so disgusting. 1997, thank you. You're so gross. I'm glad you're showing your true colors, though. I hope everybody sees them.
I think people would describe it as being in the moment. I
You're
took in my mother
welcome.
in a way I never had. I smelled that pillow, imprinting her scent in my memory, like a hunting dog. I cried in the pillow as I spoke to it, saying, "I'm sorry, but this is something I have to do." I wiped my tears,
You had
got
to
back
do
in
it.
my wheelchair,
Something you had
and found
to
her in
do.
the kitchen as she prepared my dinner. I wheeled myself up to the back of her and hugged her waist. When she turned, she could see my eyes were a little wet. "I love you," I said. "Baby," she answered. "I love you too. But I'm not dead yet.
Oh my God.
Was she really reading my mind? I told Nick I'd leave surgical gloves outside for him and to text me when he was ready to come inside. I'd hand the knife to him then. I promised I'd paint my nails pink for him. So after dinner, my mother and I ran an errand at Walmart, watched Merlin, and then painted each other's nails in liquid cotton candy. I kept an eye on the clock so I could text him from a secret phone when I knew she was sleeping. It was 1:30 a.m. when I wrote to him, "She's asleep." I wasn't focused on what he would need to do to remove the obstacle. I just focused on
Okay.
the aftermath, the freedom. Would we get a dog or a cat? There was a moment when I grimaced at the thought of her being strong enough to struggle. "Okay, getting in the cab now," Nick texted back. I got out of our bed because I still slept with my mother. I got into the electric wheelchair and went to pee and took 3 more Vicodin. I waited for the next text. "I'm here." I rolled my wheelchair to the
Is it Oxys or Vicodin, Gypsy? Because you're bouncing all over the place with these pain meds. You taking Oxy and Vicodin or just Vicodin? Or Oxy and Vicodin, you switching it up? Like what? I just don't believe this whole thing of her being this drug addict. It's very hard to believe, especially when she went to prison and didn't have any withdrawals and I don't think it was in her system, if I'm right. I don't know.
I rolled my wheelchair to the door and let Nick in. I still didn't dare walk, as my mother
Sure.
could wake at any point. "Okay, where's the knife?" Nick asked, all business, not noticing my nails still smelled of the pink lacquer. He was dressed in very dark sweatpants, a black graphic t-shirt with scary clowns, and a black zippered hoodie.
No, I know
I
that. Hold
pulled
on.
the large kitchen.
I know Oxy and Vicodin are in the same class. I know they're all opiates, but like, which one is it? Were you taking Oxy or were you taking Vicodin? Because I mean, back then maybe they'd give you both. I don't know, but I, it just the math ain't mathin'.
I pulled the large kitchen knife from the couch cushion where I had tried to hide so many objects from her. Nick ordered, "Get your ass to the bathroom." "Yes, sir." I went to the bathroom, sat on the floor, and covered my ears. Except I heard everything. Nick entered the room soundlessly because there was no bedroom door. So when she finally woke up, it must have been because he was standing over her, not because of any noise. She was startled, and I remember hearing her as if her voice was muffled because I was a couple of doors down the hall with the door closed. But it sounded like she said, "Who are you?" In Nick's arrest interview, he claimed he said something like, "I am death. You will die now." But I didn't hear that. I just heard the screaming. And then I lay in the fetal position with my hands pressed hard over my ears. But I could still hear things. "Stop!" I heard her say. "Enough, enough, please, enough." There was a pause in the stabbing. And then it sounded like she may have had a pool of blood in her mouth because I heard her say with a gargle, "Gypsy, Gypsy." I didn't answer. I didn't go to her.
The way that she just reads this with no emotion, and how the story has now evolved. First, you told Dr. Phil that you covered your ears and everything went quiet. Your story keeps changing, and now you say that you heard everything. Were you really even in the bathroom the whole time, Gypsy? You're so I just can't. She's deplorable. Blows my mind. Yeah, she probably does like reliving it. Ugh. Like, you can sit there and describe that your mom must have had blood in her mouth because she was gurgling your name. Not to be confused with how Andrew gurgles, but yeah. You're gross, Gypsy.
I didn't go to her. I just stayed very, very still. I was trying to focus on my breathing. There weren't thoughts going through my head at all. It was like I was locked inside a cloud, with the out-of-reach earth spinning below me. Nothing was real. I was a simulation as I focused on taking my next breath, and the next. And then I heard a sharp, "Help me!" During the trial, it came out that Nick had cut the back of her neck, so I imagine that shrill of pain came then. My father and Christy, along with my attorney Mike Stanfield, kept the details and the photos far away from me.
Liar!
So the first time I learned the level of brutality was at Nick's trial.
That's not true, Gypsy, because they showed the pictures of your mother's crime scene photos at your preliminary hearing or your pre-trial hearing. I can't remember which exactly one. Whether you looked at them or not, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that you were well aware of her wounds. Gosh, she makes me sick. She only wrote this book to try to clean up those... Oh, hold on. Loose ends on life. I feel like she wrote this book like to try to get ahead of something. I think she's trying to like get ahead of whatever it is that Nick and his people have that are gonna really, once the evidence comes out that all of Nick's people have, she'll be absolutely done. And I feel like a lot of this is her trying to get ahead of that, if that makes sense.
So the first time I learned the level of brutality was at Nick's trial. I remember being afraid I would vomit because in my mind, her death didn't look like the crime scene photos. My brain had created a reality that didn't exist. After that sharp, "Help me," there was total silence. There was nothing more after that. According to a case supplement report, a fellow inmate of Nick's at Greene County Jail told investigators that Nick began talking to him about what it was like to kill my mother. The report says, Godejohn said it made him feel good as he was stabbing her and said he would do it again if needed for Gypsy. The inmate, who was looking to help his own legal case by snitching, also said that when my mother resisted, Nick kept stabbing her, saying something like, "Death is calling you. Stop fighting." The attorney said that the laceration at the back of her neck was deep enough that she was almost decapitated. Even though I have not looked at the photos of my mother, the image of her maimed body will never leave me. He had toyed with her. I hadn't asked for that.
What did you
Nick
ask
didn't
for?
come straight for me. Instead, he went to the kitchen to wipe off the knife with a paper towel, and he removed the blue surgical gloves, the same kind of gloves Mama had used to administer treatment to me. I was stripped down and in the bathtub, where I ran some water, shaved my legs, shaved my vagina, and then wiped myself off.
Now, why did you have to shave all that if you said your mom was shaving you all the time? Make it make sense.
I was stripped down and in the bathtub, where I ran some water, shaved my legs, shaved my vagina, and then wiped myself off. Nick scratched on the door. The signal. And that was it. Stark naked, I opened the door for him. He was standing there with the knife in his hand. It was wrapped in a paper towel. He walked into the bathroom, set the knife on the counter by the sink, and stretched his arms out, wanting me to hug him. And so, I gave him a hug. "Say thank you." "Thank you, sir," I repeated, wondering when the relief would come. I was shivering at that point. Nick had a paper towel around his finger, which was cut and bleeding. "Clean me up," Nick ordered. "Yes, sir." I grabbed the box of Band-Aids. I wiped the blood off his finger with an alcohol swab, the same way I tended to my mother's wounds after I shot her with a BB gun. I dabbed the droplet of blood on his tennis shoe. I wiped away the red handprint that wrapped around Nick's forearm. After I got him cleaned up, we sat there in the bathroom for a second, just holding each other. His steadiness felt good as I shivered. "Go to your bedroom," Nick ordered. With my head bowed, I slowly walked to my bedroom. I never sat in a wheelchair again. I felt exposed and vulnerable in my nakedness, my baldness, and my gummy mouth. Nick had ordered me not to wear my wig or dentures. He wanted me stripped of everything.
Sure.
I resembled an alien from one of his many extraterrestrial nations that he colluded with in his various fantasy worlds and realms. As I passed my mother's bedroom, I didn't look in directly. But peripherally, I saw mounds of blankets on the bed and bags of clothes. She was buried in her own chaos. "Get all of those stuffed animals off the bed," Nick said as he followed me into my pink princess room. "Yes, sir." "Get on the bed." I lay supine on the bed as he took off his pants and straddled me, his legs pinning down mine. Then he put his arms around my neck and began to choke me.
Sure.
I just remember feeling pain from him holding me down.
Whatever.
And at that point, I feel like there may have been penetration, but I don't remember that.
What?
I just remember crying. I remember trying to scream for my mom, but I didn't have enough air. This is not what I agreed to. "Stop! Stop!" I begged Nick. But he didn't.
Sure.
He just continued to choke me,
Sure.
with one hand on my throat, one hand holding down my wrist above my head.
Oh my God.
I don't know what I was thinking when I agreed to let Nick rape me, but I know I didn't believe it was going to be a real rape. I thought, at
Sure.
worst, Nick would just pronounce aloud over and over that he was raping me or something, like dirty talk or kink.
Oh my God.
But I was feeling pressure and sharp pains, like he was trying to stuff himself inside me, just like he had tried to do in the movie theater bathroom. I kept saying stop, which looking back, I realized was only playing into his rape fantasy. After all, isn't non-consent the definition of rape? "I don't hear you saying thank you, my submissive," Nick kept saying.
Oh my God.
He wanted me to be indebted to him and in reverence to him for doing the deed. He released some pressure from his grip on my neck, enabling me to utter, "Thank you, sir," after which he still didn't seem aroused. I didn't want any of this to be happening. I felt like he was way too rough, biting me, strangling me. I felt like he didn't care about me or anything,
Oh my God.
that he was living out his greatest fantasy. And I feared that if I didn't go along with it, if I found a way to wiggle out from beneath him, he'd go into the room across the hall and rape my mother's dead body.
Oh my God.
And I didn't want that. At Nick's trial, the defense asked me if Nick raped me. And I said no, because I felt like that's what I had to say.
You're a liar, Gypsy. You're a fucking liar. So you're saying you committed perjury on the stand? I don't think so. You told the truth because you knew that you were not raped. I cannot. Limp D's are not sharp, yeah. I can't take much more, guys. I'm about to be done soon. That's what I think. It's like a disassociation thing without saying Dee Dee, and I don't know. Crazy bitch. All right, we're going to finish this chapter. It's almost over.
And I said no, because I felt like that's what I had to say. I heard the attorney say to me, "You agreed to it. You said that you knew you'd be raped that night, so you wanted it." When you hear something like that, you know no matter what you say, even if it's how much it hurt, how many times you said stop, or no, or cried, the interrogators are looking for one answer, one that affirms their line of questioning. So regretfully, I said no. He didn't rape me. But to me, it was rape. I said no. I said stop. I cried for my mom who's dead. There wasn't a moment when Nick
Because
finished
of
per se.
you.
There was no moan or
Your mom is dead because of you, Gypsy. Fuck.
there was no moan or release or semen to wipe off. He just stopped. He said later he wasn't getting any pleasure. There is a lapse in my memory, so I don't know if I blacked out or just passed out from exhaustion. But the next thing I remember is Nick picking out some clothes for me and stuffing them in a suitcase. The sound of the zipper felt so final. While we waited for the taxi to arrive, Nick ordered me to clean the little bits of blood trailing from my mom's room to the kitchen, where he initially washed himself off. I took some baby wipes and cleaned the blood spots up, not thinking about their origin. I grabbed my mother's money pouch with $4,000 in it and the rest of the Vicodin and Oxy.
Yet there was no Vicodin and Oxy. There was no Vicodin and Oxy on you. But whatever. Good God. Yeah, sex is all she talks about. She sexualizes everything. All right, I'm going to play the rest of this. I have a phone call.
I grabbed my mother's money pouch with $4,000 in it and the rest of the Vicodin and Oxy. Say thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I removed pictures from the walls and put them all in trash bags, which we took out to the curb. My logic was that if there were no pictures of me, maybe nobody would know I lived there, and everyone would forget all about me. I imagined that when the police found her, they'd write in their notepads that Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard was just a single woman living in the world, alone, all by herself. In many ways, she had been. 15. The Hideout from Hell. Nick had booked a room at the Days Inn in Springfield. It was dawn by the time we checked in. The plan was to take a bus to Wisconsin later that day, except there weren't 2 bus tickets available until days later, on June 12th. So we holed up in the hotel, ordering pizza every day, while I ate painkillers in between meals. I was high as a kite and didn't think about what would happen when I ran out of the Oxy. It recently crossed my mind that Nick and me getting caught may have prevented me from going to dangerous lengths in order to keep getting my fix. Would I have wound up with a laced street-grade pill or upped my game with a more intense drug of choice? My drug use could have led to my own death. During the trial, a damning video of Nick that I recorded on my phone was shown. I giggled incessantly while saying, "He's eating."
A damning video of Nick? I think that's a damning video for you, Gypsy. I don't think that was a very damning video for Nick. Where is that? I know I have it. Here we go. This one.
Hi, honey. I'm doing He's eating a brownie. But later he will be eating me.
A damning video of Nick. Ugh. Okay. It's been 3.5 hours of that shit. I can't take any more for today. Ugh. Yeah, no, he doesn't say a thing. I don't know how that's a damning video for Nick. That's a damning video for you, Gypsy. Not good. She reminds me of a Black Widow. Yeah, she's something. She's something dark and dangerous. Ugh. If she was that addicted but clean, she would have been spraying liquid shit. Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yes, she would have. And she never talks about going through withdrawals, but she's like chugging, not chugging, but taking all this Oxy and Vicodin. Yeah, she doesn't have any self-awareness. Absolutely not. Did you know the same room number that her and Nick stayed at the hotel was the same room number in The Shining? Oh, God. Yeah, no problem. We can listen to more of it next time, maybe. I do want to finish Kale's podcast next time I go live, which I do not know when that's going to be because of Christmas break, and I know I'm going to be hella busy this week. So I'm sure I'll jump on Morbids, though, when I can. So I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas, a Griftmas, a Jipmas. Just joking. Let's not go there. She's a few fries short of a Happy Meal. That's right. He's getting advice from Melissa Moore, the daughter of the Happy. Oh, I know. What a cute couple her and Melissa Moore make. Disgusting. Doctors need to come forward. Well, I'd like to hear from Dr. Beckerman. That's the one I want to hear from. Paging Dr. Beckerman. Oh, Dr. Beckerman. We need to talk to you, sir. She takes zero accountability, and that is why she is dangerous. She hasn't learned a thing. Nope. And this book was a dumb idea, Gypsy. But hey, we're loving it. We're loving it for you. Can't wait to see what happens from here. All this book does is show that what a piece of shit she is. Exactly. Merry Christmas to you, Tyler. And Carolina Rocker, everybody. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it. I appreciate all of you for being here and hanging out. Hit that thumbs up. Thank you to the people who sent me a Cash App or a PayPal. It is so very much appreciated, especially during the Christmas time. So I appreciate you guys. And I will hopefully see you before Christmas. If not, have a very Merry Christmas. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Peace out, motherfuckers. You guys have a good one, no, for real. I hope you all have a great Christmas and a happy new year. I will see you around. Love you so much. Bye. A disclaimer that I don't have all that much time today. Got a little bit of time today.
This beat is going to drop in 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's fair game, right? Bye, everybody.